Little Mecha Merchant. Hey! Look who's back for more adventures. We love having you here to continue this story that keeps us all awake. Important note, all of this is pure fiction. So don't try any techniques you hear here in real life, your neighbor might call the cops. This amazing novel and all its rights belong to the original author. We're just the ones giving it voice and drama. Are you enjoying the show? Prove it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and leaving that like that motivates us so much. And if you want VIP access to exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting with things you won't find anywhere else. Chapter 126. What's the point of working if you don't get paid? Having settled things with Principal Fang, according to Su Yinru's plan, Yang Hong would have to stay in bed for another month to recuperate. This news nearly made Yang Hong jump out of bed. Damn it, staying in bed all the time would eventually cause health problems, especially since Yang Hong's super healing ability meant he was already fully recovered and healthy. Unfortunately, the little girl simply wouldn't believe it. Fortunately, the parts processing plant was officially completed a few days later, and as the big boss, Yang Hong couldn't possibly not show up. So, Yang Hong finally had a reason to escape that so-called hospital bed and that depressing little room. With the completion of the parts processing plant, Yang Hong and his team finally met the mecha manufacturer they had contracted with, the one that had been hiding all along, the Royal Court of the Imperial Court. This time, the Royal Court of the Imperial Court sent a so-called technical team. Moreover, this team would remain at the parts processing plant long-term, as they were the design team responsible for standardizing the parts and components. They gave high praise to the 3 parts design drawings provided by Yang Hong. Because of this result, the boss of the Royal Court was very satisfied with the Copper Sea Gambling Arena's judgment this time. They even generously waived the handling fee that Yang Hong should have paid to the beautiful Deng, paying it all in one lump sum. The young woman was very happy to have her handling fee waived for free, and as a result, the design team also received high-level treatment from them. Well, it was high-level treatment solely from the young woman. As the big boss of the parts processing factory, Yang Hong couldn't just make a brief appearance and then go back to his hospital bed, so he found many reasons to stay. Seeing Yang Hong's energetic appearance, and since the design team specifically requested him, the young woman turned a blind eye. "You're the designer of those 3 parts design drawings." Soon, the leader of the design team approached Yang Hong. This was a young man of similar age to Yang Hong, but clearly, he was more elegant in appearance, exuding a certain charm that made him more attractive to women than Yang Hong. Was this a gigolo? Yang Hong blinked. However, seeing that the man was still somewhat respectful, he reluctantly agreed. "That's right," Yang Hong said casually, even picking his nose. This action immediately caused the young team leader's expression to change. His eyes twitched for a while before he suddenly turned around and shouted, Old Fang, Fang Benren." Soon, another young man appeared. This young man had messy hair, but fortunately, he had a simple appearance. He not only lacked the pretty boy air of the young team leader, but also had a friendly aura. As soon as he appeared, he nodded respectfully to the young team leader. "Team Leader Su, Boss Yang, this is Fang Benren, the head designer of our design team." Team Leader Su introduced the young man to Yang Hong. "From now on, you can directly contact him regarding the standardization of parts design drawings." Fang Benren, the name sounded good. Yang Hong tilted his head and carefully sized up the other man. "Now, you two should get to know each other first, to lay the foundation for the future. I have some things to attend to, so I'll be leaving for a bit. You two can talk things over." After saying this, Team Leader Su turned around and drifted away towards the young girl. In his eyes, Yang Hong was just a street thug, not worth his time. Yang Hong curled his lip. What the hell was he up to? Anyone with eyes could see he was just trying to pick up girls with his looks. However, the fact that the other party dared to provoke Su Yinru made Yang Hong quite excited. After all, she was a violent little girl and not so easy to deal with. Fang Benren was dumbfounded. They had done their investigation before coming, and the 2 small bosses seemed to have some kind of ambiguous relationship. He never expected that his team leader would openly pick up someone else's girl right in front of everyone. This was a bad start. But he couldn't do anything about it. Fang Benren was just an employee and couldn't manage these things at all. Besides, Team Leader Su had a huge background, and it wasn't something he could interfere with. At this point, Fang Benren could only bite the bullet and try to establish a connection with Yang Hong. "Boss Yang, I didn't expect you to be able to design 3 rather impressive blueprints at such a young age. Impressive? Yang Hong rolled his eyes. Those were the lowest-ranked designs that the devouring worm had picked out after careful consideration. They were practically garbage. However, even the most rudimentary technology that the devouring worm could produce was among the best on this planet. In short, the planet's technology level was incredibly weak. Then you designed a standardized. Yang Hong forgot his words, paused, and after a long while, finally managed to utter a set of phrases. Right, a standardized module. Have you designed a standardized module yet? No. Feng Benren shook his head with a wry smile. If they had really designed it, would they still need to contact this young boss? Boss Yang, there are many difficulties in the secondary design of these 3-component blueprints. We still need to cooperate with you. Feng Benren's tone was extremely respectful. Cooperate with me? What kind of cooperation? Yang Hong was annoyed. These were all things that Deadbug had brought out. He didn't know anything about them, so how could they cooperate? Seeing Yang Hong's unfriendly expression, Feng Benren's heart skipped a beat. He immediately glanced in another direction and, sure enough, Team Leader Su was chatting enthusiastically with the other party's young boss. Feng Benren quickly pulled Yang Hong to another direction, to the dining table where their entire design team was gathered. Boss Yang, these are all the top technical experts in our team. We'll have to exchange ideas together from now on. When the people at the table heard that Yang Hong was the designer of the 3-component design drawings, they all became excited, standing up to greet him. Some even wanted to discuss it on the spot. It was clear how high the technical level of the 3 design drawings that Yang Hong presented was in their eyes. Feng Benren waved his hand repeatedly. There would be plenty of opportunities, and it wouldn't hurt to wait a moment. Exchange ideas? Does that mean I should also participate in the redesign of the standardized module? Yang Hong pointed to himself and asked, blinking. That's right, those 3 design drawings were all designed by Boss Yang, so of course I had to participate. Feng Benren nodded. It sounded good, but he didn't know about the salary. Yang Hong, looking shy and embarrassed, asked, how much is my salary? Salary? Feng Benren was dumbfounded. The other designers were equally dumbfounded. Weren't they collaborators? Why would they need a salary? Moreover, Yang Hong also had the title of boss of a parts processing factory. And that wasn't all, at least he currently owned a very profitable parts center. With that kind of status, he still wanted a salary? Feng Benren's eyes twitched as he asked, Boss Yang, you don't mean you want us to pay you a salary, do you? What? You're not going to pay me a salary? Yang Hong's eyes widened, almost slamming the table. Damn it, if he wasn't even paid, what was the point of working? Chapter 127 Just want to collect a salary. Faced with Yang Hong's shamelessness, Feng Benren had no choice but to call in Team Leader Su. He was just a junior employee and didn't have the authority. Salary. After Team Leader Su arrived and learned the whole story, his eyes widened in disbelief, twitching occasionally. He couldn't believe that the person in front of him was really the future boss of a parts manufacturer. Moreover, the money the other party was making at the parts center was in the hundreds of millions. And he was actually talking to them about salaries. The entire design team looked at Yang Hong with contempt. Some even expressed their disdain on the spot. The young girl who came with him blushed, glaring at Yang Hong, too embarrassed to stay any longer. Yang Hong hummed, seemingly unperturbed. Actually, Yang Hong had no choice. He didn't know which guy had tipped him off, but the 100 million yuan in supplement fees he had collected last time had been forcibly handed over. And that wasn't all. The 20 million yuan he had painstakingly saved was also wiped out. The reason is simple, the parts processing plant has only just been established, and there are countless places where money is needed. The money the parts center is currently earning might not even be enough. Therefore, Su Yinaru's actions are perfectly reasonable. Moreover, she has been trying every means to get Yang Hong to return the remaining 30 million from last time. Having finally seized the opportunity, how could she let it slip away? The young woman can have every penny of the business expenses covered, but the company will absolutely not reimburse personal expenses. Su Yinru understands one principle: to go further in business, cash flow is key. Loans? Is that money so easy to obtain? If loans are taken out, once there's a first time, there will inevitably be a second, and then again and again, until the lifeline of the entire company is in someone else's hands. Someone else lets you make money, and you have to make money, until they drain you dry, until there's nothing left to drain, and with a single word, you're bankrupt. And you only get a fraction of what you earn. Therefore, Su Yinru believed that if they couldn't control the company's cash flow properly and Yang Hong squandered it all, they would inevitably face bankruptcy in the end. However, Su Yinru remembered that she had left Yang Hong a little bit. Yang Hong grumbled, "It really is just a tiny bit, a mere fraction of a few tens of thousands, not even enough for a meal." He vaguely remembered that the time they ate their fill on the 12th, it seemed to have cost nearly 20,000, and that was just in the Mecha junkyard. If they were in Haiyang City, they probably wouldn't even be able to afford a decent meal. If he didn't take this opportunity to rake in some wages, Yang Hong would definitely not spend any more money. "You really want wages?" Team leader Su's brows furrowed. "That's right," Yang Hong nodded casually. "Alright, then I'll give you one too." Team leader Su shook his head, his eyes filled with disdain. Feng Benren is the highest paid person in this team. He only earns around 100,000 star coins a month. As for you, well, after thinking for a moment, team leader Su gestured with his hand, offering what he considered a reasonable amount, 80,000. His tone was incredibly contemptuous, almost like he was giving them a handout. But honestly, he really was giving them a handout. Because he was only offering this price out of respect for Boss Su. Otherwise, he would have definitely turned around and left. Damn it, a big boss like him has the nerve to ask them for a salary? 80,000, Yang Hong blinked. "This, team leader Su, do you think my abilities are only worth 80,000? Team leader Su's movements were clearly stunned. Feng Benren's eyes twitched, but he didn't speak. All the designers were dumbfounded. The little girl also rolled her eyes. After realizing what was happening, team leader Su almost spat on Yang Hong's head. In terms of capability, it's certainly more than 80,000. Let's set aside the current owner of the parts center and the future owner of the parts processing plant for now. Just those 3 parts design drawings alone, once produced and put on the market, could easily fetch at least $1 billion or $2. Moreover, if they were adopted as standard equipment by mecha manufacturers, tens of billions would be easily within reach. But right now, they were only planning a secondary design. Frankly speaking, under these circumstances, based on the conditions offered by the manufacturers, it's equivalent to requiring the designers to redesign, which is completely free. Free, entirely free. Team leader Su's eye twitched. What's more, this secondary design is practically helping them make money. They still have the nerve to ask for a salary? A little something, a win-win situation, okay? However, seeing that Yang Hong seemed determined to renege on their demands, team leader Su had no choice but to lower his tone. "Mr. Yang, how much do you plan to ask for?" To be honest, based on the 3 component drawings Yang Hong provided, the higher-ups were very optimistic about this cooperation. He himself was only there to gain experience. If anything went wrong, he couldn't afford the responsibility. Faced with Yang Hong's shamelessness, team leader Su had no choice but to compromise. At this moment, he only hoped that Yang Hong wouldn't try to take too much at once and quote tens of millions directly. If that happened, they would have to leave disappointed. Fortunately, Yang Hong wasn't greedy. He thought for a moment, then pointed at Feng Benren. "Since he earns 100,000 every month, and my abilities aren't bad either, let's start with 200,000. Feng Benren's eyes widened. He opened his mouth, but ultimately had nothing to say. He had seen the design drawings. Yang Hong's design skills were indeed superior to his. Putting aside all status, this price was barely acceptable. Team leader Su was a different story. He nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. 200,000 yuan first? Feng Benren was a senior designer, and he only earned 100,000 yuan a month. 200,000 yuan was the salary of a super designer. And anything beyond 100,000 was beyond his control. Team leader Su stared wide-eyed at Yang Hong, then glanced at Su Yinru, whose face was flushed red with embarrassment and who wished she could disappear into the ground. Finally, he walked away dejectedly to report to his superiors. Hearing the report, the person on the other end was both amused and exasperated, and could only report it up the chain of command until it reached the big boss. The big boss was also at a loss for words, but fortunately, he was quite perceptive. He guessed that the root of the problem lay with the team leader, and immediately waved his hand, agreeing. Actually, the problem didn't lie with team leader Su at all. The root of the problem was that Yang Hong was genuinely broke. Seeing the other party's nervous demeanor, and after a final communication, they finally agreed, Yang Hong felt puzzled. What could be the problem? He just wanted his wages. Why was he so nervous? Chapter 128 Another troublemaker? Forced repeatedly, the devouring worm had no choice but to reveal itself. It was frustrated. How could Yang Hong have discovered its weakness? Damn, it was helpless against human attacks. Although it didn't know how it had been stripped from its previous master, host-based attacks like starvation and suicide were definitely its biggest taboo. Moreover, it needed to recover its energy. Helpless and frustrated, the devouring worm reappeared. Looking at the small face in its palm, Yang Hong snorted coldly, "Show yourself now, wasn't this forced?" The devouring worm pouted. "Now, I don't want to argue with you. Quickly standardize these 3 parts." Yang Hong raised his head, giving a smug order. "Little brat, you're still too green to fight me," it thought smugly. The devouring worm had already begun researching the parts standardization process while it was awake. It must be said that although the technology on this planet was backward, the idea was still quite feasible. It can be predicted that if these standardized parts reach a certain scale, it will be a prototype for further exploration of space. By eliminating many tedious steps, the speed of mecha formation is also much faster. Most importantly, repairs become much easier when mecha parts are damaged, no longer requiring highly skilled techniques. Even ordinary mecha pilots can easily replace them. This is the key point. However, this standardized process of redesigning parts is not easy. Achieving the same state under limited conditions is difficult without a certain design concept and technology. However, the devouring insect had already been exposed to this, making the design process easy and effortless. Under Yang Hongwei's pressure, the devouring insect, though reluctant, could only begin the secondary design. Meanwhile, in Haiyang City, at the Shianki Parts Factory, in the reception room, Ling Shianki, as the host, was greeting a mysterious guest. The 2 bosses of the Luli Parts Factory, Suluo and Lili, were also beside him, their faces full of obsequiousness. Ling Shianki carefully poured a bottle of his treasured wine for his guest. Mr. Shi, this is a fine wine I've treasured for a long time. Please try it." The mysterious guest, Mr. Shi, glanced at him, his expression non-committal, then picked up the glass and gulped it down like a cow. This action made Ling Shianki's smile freeze. He usually wouldn't even dare to taste such fine wine, and seeing it wasted by someone drinking it so guzzled his eyes. Looking at the empty glass, he was at a loss, unsure whether to pour more wine. Fortunately, the mysterious guest wasn't interested in that. "Mr. Ling, have you taken care of the matter I asked you to handle in advance?" "We've already registered, and Principal Feng of Haiyang Academy has agreed." Ling Shianki first discreetly hid the wine behind his back before replying. "Damn it, it's all wasted. There won't be any more later." He even regretted bringing it out. Yes, Principal Feng got 10 spots from that small business owner. This time, both sides invested $1 billion each in the registration. "We can directly enter the advanced training class without that small business owner's approval." Suluo nodded in agreement. "According to the information we've gathered, that small business owner has brought out 3 new technologies at once. You absolutely must learn all 5 anti-dis assembly technologies." Boss Shi narrowed his eyes. "This is a crucial step, understood?" "We understand." Ling Shianki and the 2 bosses of Luli Parts Factory nodded repeatedly. "This time, I've invested nearly 10 billion in you. If this goes wrong, you should know the consequences, right?" Boss Shi's tone changed, his gaze instantly falling on the 3 like a sharp sword. "Understood, we understand." The 3 of them felt the temperature drop instantly, their lips trembling slightly. "By the way, Boss Shi, that young boss has a very sophisticated alloy formula. If their parts this time also use this alloy, then we..." Suddenly, Lili remembered the Wild Wolf Drill number 1. This was a part produced using the ultra-high-strength Wild Wolf alloy number 1. Even the locally renowned super drill bit shattered into pieces under its impact. And most importantly, this alloy was developed by that young boss, and the ownership was in his hands. "We've already investigated that." Boss Shi waved his hand dismissively. "Remember, this planet has more than just District 32. We've already discovered a new alloy formula with almost the same hardness in another district, and we've spent a fortune to buy it back." "Really?" Lili's eyes lit up. Suluo and Ling Shianki exchanged glances, both seeing surprise and a hint of excitement in each other's eyes. "Boss Shi, then what do you mean? We spent a fortune on this alloy formula, so we certainly won't just give it to you directly." Boss Shi's words were ambiguous. The three of them were somewhat disappointed. However, this was normal. They wouldn't hand over items they'd spent a fortune on to others. Besides, this alloy formula could almost instantly elevate the entire mecha industry. Boss, she glanced at the three men without showing any emotion before continuing. However, we can give you a sample of our newly produced alloy as soon as possible. Upon hearing this, the three men's eyes lit up again. No formula, but with the alloy, the result was the same, wasn't it? Using these alloys, they could still produce parts no less than the number 1 Wild Wolf drill. I've prepared all the conditions for you. Enough alloy, enough technology, enough money. If you fail in all of this, then there's really no point in continuing to survive in Haiyang City. Boss Shi's sharp gaze fell on the three men once more. With these words, if they truly failed, they would lose everything, not only face but also their reputation. Alright, time is running out. You guys need to quickly send someone to get hold of those 5 technical materials from Principal Fang. We need to develop new anti-disassembly technology before that little boss's parts are produced. Boss Shi's eyes were sinister. Meanwhile, at the parts center of the Mecha junkyard, in the workshop, watching the devouring worm slowly standardize a design drawing, Yang Hong was so angry his nostrils almost flared to one side. Damn it, are you messing with me? Why is it so slow? The devouring worm was getting angry. Damn it, this was a complete redesign, unlike randomly picking a document from a large pool of materials. This was something that would completely burn your brain. And at this speed, even 100 super designers on this planet couldn't match it. Still slow? If you think it's too slow, then you do it yourself. The devouring worm wanted to shout, but when it saw Yang Hong's expression that said, if you don't hurry up, I'll launch a personal attack, it immediately wilted. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 129 Standardization of Secondary Design. It has to be said that the secondary design of standardized parts is a truly mind-boggling task. Even a top-tier designer like the devouring worm, who had seen countless design drawings and possessed numerous solutions in its mind, spent an entire night redesigning the 3 parts drawings. The devouring worm was exhausted, but when it looked back, it immediately became furious. Damn it, Yang Hong was asleep. Asleep, and looking quite comfortable, with drool still dripping from the corner of its mouth, forming a thin strand. The devouring worm wanted to explode in anger, but the energy it had expended throughout the night left it utterly exhausted, and its net-like body had softened. Helpless, it could only slowly shrink back into Yang Hong's body. This anger would be saved for later. The devouring worm declared that it would definitely unleash its anger, and it would definitely come back to unleash it. When Yang Hong woke up, the sun was already high in the sky. He rubbed his sleepy eyes, feeling his stomach rumbling. He had slept enough, but he was hungry. Damn it, I wonder if it's finished yet. Yang Hong grabbed the electronic notebook on the table and glanced at it casually. However, he could only tell that these designs were very different from those from last night, but he had no idea why. Right now, the most important thing was to fill his stomach first. Leaving the studio, Yang Hong appeared at the parts center. Suddenly, Yang Hong felt a pang of regret because he had forgotten something. It was already high in the sky, and at this time of day, it seemed that only number 12 in the Mecha junkyard had any food. As for other places, he had never seen any. Moreover, the parts center didn't seem to have a self-service restaurant. No way, he had to make sure the little girl had a self-service restaurant in the future, Yang Hong vowed. As the boss, what if he got hungry? Like him now, he didn't even know where to find food. Right, those guys have quite a few people. I wonder if they have any food with them. Yang Hong suddenly thought of Fang Benren's design team. With that thought, he quickened his pace and hurried to the parts processing plant. The parts processing plant had an office specifically reserved for the design team. Manager Fang, why hasn't that junior boss arrived yet? Someone asked. Fang Benren's brows furrowed, he didn't know how to answer. Everything was fine yesterday, but he'd disappeared since the afternoon. What was this boss up to? Was he really playing hide and seek? After all, the ultimate beneficiaries of these parts drawings weren't them, but that junior boss. Frankly, he'd never seen such an irresponsible boss. Could it be that he's annoyed we ignored him, and now he's too scared to come? Someone else said. This immediately drew sneers from some people. To be honest, they'd never seen anyone like Yang Hong, who was being advised to make money and then turned around and demanded payment. His skin was incredibly thick. I bet those component drawings were actually designed by a separate team. I feel the same way. Exactly. How could an idiot like that be the one who designed the component drawings? Yeah, even we couldn't design those components with that level of skill. That's right, that idiot is better than us. One sentence immediately drew ridicule from many designers. Enough. Feng Benren coughed heavily, glanced around, and stopped the designers from talking. We shouldn't gossip about others in their component processing factory. However, it was too late. The people they were talking about had already arrived and were standing outside the door, their faces dark with anger. Actually, Yang Hong didn't want to eavesdrop. He just wanted to find out who had brought food to fill their stomachs. He never expected to hear a bunch of people belittling him while standing outside the door. Yang Hong was a very good-natured person and easy to get along with, but being a good person doesn't necessarily mean having a good temper. What's more, he had overheard people talking badly about him to his face. As the saying goes, one can tolerate what one cannot tolerate. Did they really think he was a pushover? Yang Hong coughed heavily. His voice was indeed very loud, almost deafening the designers. After all, Yang Hong's physical body had been strengthened by the devouring worm more than once, making his vocal cords much stronger than the average person. He just usually kept a low profile and spoke softly. The designers' ears were ringing, and some with better hearing even had countless little stars appearing on their foreheads, the stars of dizziness. Seeing Yang Hong's appearance, Feng Benren's face darkened. Even a fool would know that the other party had heard their conversation. Boss Yang, I just want to ask, who brought any food? Yang Hong's gaze was gloomy as he fiercely swept his eyes over the designers present. Food? Feng Benren was stunned. The designers were dumbfounded. This question was unexpected. They had thought he was here to interrogate them. I have some too. A few quick-witted ones immediately offered up their food. Although Feng Benren was completely bewildered, he quickly gathered the food. Yang Hong grumbled as he found a seat and, ignoring everyone present, began to devour his food. He wasn't happy, but what good was being unhappy? He might as well fill his stomach first. A full stomach gave him the energy to talk and curse. Seeing Yang Hong eating heartily, Feng Benren was speechless. However, he remembered that Yang Hong had taken the electronic notebook containing the component drawings with him when he left. Since Yang Hong didn't seem like he intended to do the secondary design alone, he had no choice but to step forward and speak. Mr. Yang, Feng Benren's idea was simple. Rather than begging Yang Hong, it would be better for the designers to get together, think it over, and maybe one day they'd figure it out. What is it? Yang Hong asked impatiently. Mr. Yang, could you give us the component drawings so we can think about them and study them? Feng Benren asked cautiously. Oh, you mean the component drawings? Yang Hong casually pulled out his laptop. Here, I've already standardized and redesigned those 3 component drawings. They're all finished. Okay. Feng Benren quickly took them, but the moment he held the laptop, he froze, almost petrified. You've already completed the standardized redesign. Feng Benren struggled to look up at Yang Hong, managing to utter a coherent sentence. The designers were all dumbfounded, standing there, eyes wide with disbelief. Standardized redesign of the component drawings, completed? And all in one night? Chapter 130 Viewing pictures requires a contract. Feng Benren couldn't believe it. He hurriedly opened his electronic notebook and pulled out 3 component drawings. The drawings had changed drastically. They looked like they'd been redesigned. This is, his eyes widened at the sight of the new drawings. Here, hissed that place. That's right. How come I never thought of this? The more Feng Benren looked, the more astonished he became. With each glance, he almost gasped, and with each shift in focus, he wanted to slap himself. Because he didn't know until he saw it, it was so simple. So simple that anyone could easily figure it out, yet he just couldn't. His entire design team was equally stumped. Seeing Feng Benren's expression, the designers panicked, scratching their heads, wanting to go and take a look, but the thought of being overheard gossiping behind his back made them blush with embarrassment. However, some were shameless. A few, already impatient, jumped up and headed towards Feng Benren. By this time, Yang Hong had finished eating. He patted his stomach and burped. Seeing the designers wanting to look at the design drawings, he coughed loudly. Of course, his cough was as loud as ever, instantly knocking several of the more timid ones unconscious. "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Yang Hong asked sternly, clearly displeased. "We're designers, of course we're just looking at the component drawings," a particularly thick-skinned designer replied. "Who said you could look?" Yang Hong's eyes widened, glaring at him. The thick-skinned designer stopped in his tracks. The other designers who wanted to see the drawings also stopped, their faces alternating between red and purple. Fang Benren raised his head, first glancing at the designers present, then said with a thick face, "Boss Yang, they're all designers." I know," Yang Hong nodded. "You're all designers, then why do you want to see my designs?" Yang Hong raised his head in dissatisfaction, picking his nose. "Am I an idiot?" Fang Benren was dumbfounded. The designers were equally dumbfounded. They thought Yang Hong was magnanimous and wouldn't hold a grudge for what happened earlier, but now he was settling scores. Holding his electronic notebook, Fang Benren's face turned bright red with embarrassment. If Yang Hong was an idiot, then they were even less than idiots. The three component drawings already used very advanced design techniques, even their entire team couldn't standardize them for secondary design. Yet Yang Hong completed them in just one night. In other words, 10 of their teams probably couldn't match Yang Hong alone. Now, let alone asking for 200,000 yuan, even if it were 2 million, 20 million, or even 200 million, countless companies would be vying to hire him. Because he could create value no less than that salary. There are many thin-skinned people in this world, but there are even more thick-skinned ones. The designer with the thickest skin was the first to stand up. "Who just said Boss Yang is an idiot?" He turned his head, glaring angrily at the group of designers. "It seems to be you." Some of the designers who remembered first mentioning the part thought to themselves. "You really don't know what's good for you," one of the thick-skinned designers said indignantly, holding up 3 fingers. 3 component drawings, a full 3, and all high-specification ones. "You guys can make this." He glanced around at the assembled designers, his face full of disappointment. Not only did Boss Yang design these 3 component drawings single-handedly, but he also standardized and redesigned them in just one night. "You say he's an idiot." Seeing no response from the designers, his tone suddenly became even harsher. "You tell me, is Boss Yang an idiot or not?" "No," someone immediately chimed in. "I didn't hear you." "Say it again." "No." This time, not only the quick-thinking person spoke up, but the other designers also shouted in unison. The shameless man finally turned around, smiling and bowing obsequiously to Yang Hong. "Boss Yang, you're a genius in parts design. No one would dare think you're an idiot. If anyone dares to think that, they're definitely not even an idiot." Yang Hong snorted a few times, remaining silent. Fang Benren stared at the shameless man, his eyes twitching uncontrollably. He'd seen plenty of shameless people, but none this thick-skinned. Even an iron wall would be ashamed. The term idiot clearly originated from this man, yet he was now cursing without batting an eye. But, regardless, this man had come to the rescue, and he couldn't simply turn his back on him. Who was Yang Hong? He couldn't be dismissed with a few words. He should dream on. He glanced around at everyone. "If you want to see, it's not impossible." Which designer wouldn't want to see? Their task here was simply to standardize and redesign the component drawings. The drawings created by experts were clearly based on experience. Even just a glance would be an improvement for them. It might even elevate their design experience. So, they all stared wide-eyed. Yang Hong took back his electronic notebook and quickly pulled out a contract. He revised it before handing it to Fang Benren. "Pass this contract down so everyone can see it. Those who have signed can see the design drawings. As for those who haven't signed, those who hadn't signed obviously couldn't see it." This didn't need to be stated explicitly. Fang Benren was taken aback, then read the contract from beginning to end. After a long pause, he looked up, his face flushed. "Boss Yang, this, what?" Yang Hong picked his nose. "We're all designers assigned by higher-ups. This isn't reasonable, is it?" Fang Benren's lips twitched. The contract stipulated that any designer who saw the component drawings was prohibited from leaving the component processing factory before the component was finalized and sold. They could accept this clause. After all, sometimes, people who would sell information would be among these people, and no one could guarantee anything. But the following conditions were unacceptable even to Fang Benren. Designers who have seen the component design drawings cannot leave the component processing factory for 3 years. cannot mention the technology to outsiders for 5 years, and cannot spread the technology for 10 years. Damn it. They were designers assigned by the royal court mecha manufacturer, not hired by Yang Hong and his group. Did they really think they were their own employees? To be molded and manipulated however they pleased? They had to be paid. Fang Benren was speechless. Chapter 131 The contract that was unintentionally binded. Unreasonable, Yang Hong turned and stared at Fang Benren. Can you represent all the designers? Fang Benren hesitated, then shook his head. That settles it. Send out the contracts first. Sign them if you agree, get out if you don't. Yang Hong waved his hand dismissively. Get out? All the designers' eyes immediately fixed on Fang Benren. Although Fang Benren had repeatedly stated the contract was unreasonable, that was only from his personal perspective. And they were just designers, and parts designers at that. What about the Royal Court of the Mechas? That's a mech manufacturer. In other words, they only accept mech designers. They were hired to standardize parts design. If they couldn't even stay with Yang Hong, what use would they be back? It was obvious that if they left here and returned to the Royal Court of the Mechas, they would still be fired. Damn it, Fang Benren was in charge. He could easily assign them other work after returning, but they couldn't. So, the designers looked on expectantly, eager to see the contract. If it seemed reasonable to them, they'd sign it immediately. Improving their experience and skills was the priority. With experience and skills, even if things didn't go well later, finding a new job would be much easier. Faced with a group of eager, gleaming designers, Fang Benren had no choice but to distribute the contracts one by one via electronic bracelets. While distributing them, he kept reminding them, you are all designers from the Royal Court of the Mech Warriors. If you sign this contract, you might be stuck here for the rest of your lives. Remember, you are all currently receiving salaries from the Royal Court of the Mech Warriors. As the saying goes, different status leads to different perspectives. The designers only listened to Fang Benren's words, not taking them to heart. Once they received the contract, they immediately read it from the beginning from their own perspective. Designers who see the component drawings are prohibited from leaving the component processing plant before the component is finalized and sold. This clause was acceptable to the mech pilots. Even before the component design is finalized and sold, there's a risk of leaks, which could seriously damage the interests of component manufacturers. Next, they finally saw the conditions that Fang Benren considered unreasonable. Designers who have seen the component design drawings cannot leave the component processing factory for 3 years, cannot mention the technology to outsiders for 5 years, and cannot spread the technology for 10 years. This clause needs to be considered in 2 parts. The latter part is relatively reasonable. After all, designing a component drawing is not easy, and if it were leaked, it would definitely be cracked, leading to widespread obsolescence and ultimately huge losses. The only thing that gave them a headache was the 3-year restriction on leaving the component processing factory. Since they were currently receiving salaries from the royal court, this clause was indeed difficult to enforce. The shameless designer spoke up, "Boss Yang, what if we sign the contract, but your cooperation with the royal court doesn't last more than 3 years? That's easy." Yang Hong waved his hand dismissively. "If you're willing to return to royal court, then of course you can." Of course, the 5 or 10-year condition remains unchanged. After a moment's thought, Yang Hong added, "If you don't want to go back and plan to stay, that's also possible. Whatever salary you receive, Wild Wolves will pay you the same." "Really?" The shameless designer's eyes lit up. "I'm the boss. I call the shots." Yang Hong nodded, picked his nose, and continued, "If you can demonstrate certain accessory design skills, promotion and a raise are not out of the question." Hearing this, the shameless designer immediately perked up. Without thinking, he quickly signed his name on the contract. As an accessory designer, only by staying in the right place will one be valued. Clearly, an accessory processing plant was their best option. Of course, the salary offered by the royal court was obviously quite high, and they would naturally choose it if the parts processing factory could offer the same salary. Many parts designers also signed their names. You? Fang Benren was dumbfounded. Was this to look at the parts drawings, or was it to poach people? Seeing that most of the parts designers had signed their names, Fang Benren couldn't sit still and quickly made an excuse to report to Team Leader Su. Team Leader Su, who was doing Keep Fit workout, almost dropped a barbell when he heard the report. He rushed over at lightning speed. However, it was too late when he arrived. Only 3 or 5 people in the entire team had not signed the contract, including Fang Benren. Boss Yang, what are you doing? Team leader Su's face was so dark, it was almost as if he had been smeared with charcoal. Did they want to see the standardized secondary design drawings? Yang Hong blinked. I'm just fulfilling their wishes, PFFT. Team leader Su nearly spat out a mouthful of blood, his pale face flushed crimson, clearly the blood had already reached his cheeks. You call this fulfilling their wishes? Team leader Su snatched the electronic notebook from Fang Benren's hand, pointing at the contract on it, and roared, "You're kidnapping people, kidnapping people." Yang Hong continued to blink. No, aren't they still receiving salaries from your royal court? Damn it, they are receiving salaries from royal court, yet they're locked into your wild wolf parts processing factory by a contract. Team leader Su gritted his teeth. Seeing Yang Hong still feigning ignorance, he was furious. No, this matter had to be reported, otherwise, if something went wrong, Team leader Su would definitely take the blame. In front of Yang Hong, Team leader Su directly dialed the higher-ups communication. During the cooperation period, anything involving Wild Wolf Parts Processing Factory was a major event. Given this situation, the higher-ups couldn't make a decision on their own, so the report was passed up the chain of command, eventually reaching the hands of the Grand Boss of the Royal Court. I need to communicate with that kid, the Grand Boss said, immediately demanding to see Yang Hong for himself. I am Yang Hong, Yang Hong said casually, his electronic bracelet flashing as he approached team leader Su. What do you mean, kid? The Grand Boss asked, his tone unreadable. What do I mean? Yang Hong blinked, feigning ignorance. Playing dumb? Tell me, what are your intentions in making my men sign that kind of contract? They want to see the parts diagrams, and I'll naturally grant their wish, but our parts factory also needs to make money. If it gets leaked, who am I supposed to turn to? Yang Hong scoffed. As for the contract, well, Yang Hong admitted it was actually a modified version, specifically a modified version of Zaba's zero-salary contract. Still not being honest, this time, the Grand Boss's tone was slightly annoyed. What else can we do? Do you expect us to support your men? Yang Hong retorted. The big boss didn't respond immediately. After a long while, his voice finally came through. If the cooperation goes through, you'll have to support them sooner or later. What? He really had to pay to support them? Yang Hong was dumbfounded. He said he was just saying it casually. Why should they have to pay him? Yang Hong was furious. Chapter 132 The Ungreedy Old Money Grubber. Haiyang Academy, Principal's Office. It's you again. Hearing the voice from the electronic bracelet, Principal Fang's face immediately darkened. Principal Fang, I've invested $1 billion in your new courses. Why am I so unwelcome? Sensing Principal Fang's tone, Ling Xiangqi immediately became displeased. Principal Fang coughed awkwardly, straightening his tone. Ling Xiangqi, I already told you, our people are currently compiling materials for the advanced courses. In 2 or 3 days, you'll be able to send people to teach. Principal Fang, I'm not here to urge you about starting classes. Hearing this, Principal Fang's expression softened. Then what do you want? I'm very busy compiling materials for the new courses. I simply don't have time. Oh, of course I know you're busy, Principal Fang, but I heard that you've prepared 5 new technologies for this new course. Ling Xiangqi quickly got to the point. I just want to know how to learn all the technologies at once. Who told you we've prepared 5 new technologies? Do you really think new technologies are so easy to develop? Principal Fang's eyes widened, and he immediately shook his head in denial. At the same time, he cursed inwardly. Which bastard leaked this information? These new technologies are the foundation for attracting investment. If someone learns them all at once, will there be any investment left? Ha 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 ha! Ling Xiangqi laughed loudly. Principal Fang, our parts manufacturers also have their own intelligence sources. How could we not find out such trivial information? By the way, the 2 bosses from Luli Factory are also here with me. They are also interested in learning the 5 technologies. No. Principal Fang shook his head vigorously. Principal Fang, our 2 major manufacturers are considered veterans in Haiyang City. Let's talk this over, Su Luo spoke up from the side. Suddenly, Principal Fang's eyes blinked. The extra technologies were indeed a clever way to make money, but he hadn't expected that someone would be interested in learning them so quickly. This was something he could consider. Principal Fang, each of our parts factories has already invested $1 billion, so what's a little more investment? Don't you think so? Ling Xiangqi spoke again. Indeed, Principal Fang's eyes lit up. This was exactly what he was waiting for. But how much should he charge? For a moment, Principal Fang, the old fox, fell into deep thought. He had already reviewed all 5 Entitas assembly techniques, each one was of a higher level than the last, and the 2 highest level techniques had long been shelved, ready to be used to make a fortune. Accepting too little would be a disservice to these 2 advanced Entitas assembly techniques. Principal Fang, why aren't you saying anything? Ling Xiangqi asked impatiently. Principal Fang coughed a few more times. Since you've already obtained the intelligence, you should know that the Entitas assembly techniques we have are increasingly powerful, and the one used as the basic course was also used in the Wild Wolf drill bit number 1 produced by the Wild Wolf Parts Center. I don't need to explain the Entitas assembly performance of the Wild Wolf drill bit number 1, do I? Yes, regarding the Wild Wolf drill bit number 01, our Luli Parts Factory has extensive experience. It's a very high-level Entitas assembly technique. Su Luo nodded in response. Seeing the Wild Wolf drill bit number 1 selling so well and at such a high price, many parts manufacturers were making parts for it, but how many could actually research and develop it? Moreover, even the instructors at the Parts Design Institute of Heian College couldn't achieve this. Since you all understand, you should also understand the value of the last 2 Entitas assembly technologies, right? Principal Fang asked with a smile. Ling Xiangqi's heart skipped a beat. Was this old fox planning to cut him short? Normally, our 3 levels of courses only teach the first 3 Entitas assembly technologies. As additional technologies, they need to be added to the super course, and the super course requires each of you manufacturers to invest an additional 10 billion. At this point, the old money grubber's eyes flashed with coin symbols. I'm not being greedy, I'm just offering an honest price, Principal Fang thought frankly. Ling Xiangqi, Su Luo, Li Li, Principal Fang, you're not joking, are you? Ling Xiangqi's lips twitched. Are you kidding me? Principal Fang's expression changed, his tone turning unfriendly. You all understand the value of Entitas assembly technology, so why don't you understand how much profit these technologies can bring you? The Wild Wolf drill bit number 1, a mere 100 units, brought in nearly 500 million yuan in revenue for the Wild Wolf Parts Center. Do you understand? Principal Fang explained earnestly. If you could sell a few hundred units, wouldn't you recoup 1 billion yuan? Moreover, the same technology can be used for different parts. Besides the Entitas assembly technology, the Wild Wolf drill bit number 1 also uses a new alloy. Su Luo's eyes twitched. A few hundred units? Did they really think parts were as cheap as cabbage? Even for established parts manufacturers like them, sales in the entire Heian city were at most around 100 or so yuan. And not every part could sell for such a high price. This price is non-negotiable. No matter which parts manufacturer wants to learn the super course content, the price is the same, Principal Fang snorted. Moreover, as the technology increases, joining later might require further investment. That's outrageous. Ling Xiangqi was furious, but he didn't dare utter a sound. He pointed at Li Li, gesturing for him to leave quietly so he could contact a person behind the scenes. Hearing that another 10 billion was to be invested, the mysterious guest, Boss Shi, twitched at the corner of his eye, but he still gritted his teeth and agreed. In the plan, Entitas assembly was an indispensable key. Knowing that the person behind the scenes had nodded, Ling Xiangqi finally breathed a sigh of relief. 10 billion, we agree. But we also have one request, speak. With another sum of money coming in, Principal Fang was both happy and excited, his white beard swaying as if moving without wind. We need to complete all the course content within a week. What? Principal Fang was dumbfounded. Leaving aside Heian Academy, the Mecha junkyard. Regarding Yang Hong's separate contract to kidnap people, the big boss of the Royal Court of the Royal Guard didn't pursue the matter, but that didn't mean he could turn a blind eye. Therefore, both parties agreed that once this batch of parts was officially produced and sold successfully, the team would be officially handed over to the parts processing plant. Of course, the team's salaries would also have to be paid unilaterally by the parts processing plant. As for the consequences of failure? No. The big boss of the Royal Court was very optimistic about this collaboration, believing that the success rate was at least 90%. Now, those hesitant designers had no choice but to reluctantly sign the contract. They couldn't refuse, because they were essentially being sold to a parts processing factory with no choice whatsoever. Actually, it wasn't that they had no choice, they just needed to be willing to find new jobs starting tomorrow. But how many people could bear to give up such a high salary? Most importantly, working under Yang Hong would allow them to learn a lot about parts design. Chapter 133 Equipment Arrival. Having resolved the secondary design for standardizing the parts drawings, and incidentally solved the problems of a group of designers, Yang Hong finally had some free time. To be honest, the designer's problems were really just a side issue. He genuinely hadn't intended to kidnap anyone. He was simply modifying Zaka's contract. Thinking about the designer's future salaries, Yang Hong felt a pang of heartache, and tears welled up in his eyes. He didn't know how to tell the little girl about it. Soon, the equipment purchased by Su Yinru arrived. As the big boss, Yang Hong had to personally inspect the newly purchased equipment. At this moment, the parts processing plant was bustling with trucks of all sizes, each loaded with various equipment parts of different sizes. Since most of the equipment consisted of entire production lines, most needed to be disassembled, transported back, and then assembled. Yang Hong looked around and saw not only the equipment installation mechas sent by the equipment manufacturers, but also many engineering mech engineers helping with unloading. Looking at these engineering mechas, Yang Hong felt a strange unease. In fact, these engineering mechas were all mech engineers who had been hired to build the parts processing plant. They not only helped build the parts processing plant, but even the metal processing plant had their involvement, making them valuable contributors to Yang Hong's business after it was renamed Wild Wolf. Firstly, having helped build 2 processing plants in succession, they had developed a certain affinity for the company. Secondly, Yang Hong had promised them a priority purchase quota for new parts, and they were very interested in the new parts. As for the third point, they were also interested in this small boss who had taken the parts center from Wild Wolf, wanting to see how far he could go, so that he could brag about it when drinking with his fellow enthusiasts in the future, something to have when they were short of money. From a distance, Yang Hong saw the new equipment being assembled, the little girl, and team leader Su, who was trying to stay by her side. "What's this guy doing here?" Yang Hong was surprised to see the pretty boy. Yang Hong had only met the little girl a few times before he completely succumbed to her violent methods. Hadn't that guy witnessed her violence yet? "Yang Hong, come here." Su Yinru seemed very pleased. Yang Hong felt guilty and was clearly reluctant, but he reluctantly went over. Su Yinru pointed to a large piece of equipment. "Look, with this, the process of making drill bit parts will be much simpler." She remembered that Yang Hong liked drill bit parts, so she specifically picked out such a large piece. Of course, the main reason was that 2 of the 3 parts drawings this time were drill bit parts. Really, Yang Hong finally became interested. Su Yinru covered her mouth, laughing happily. "This time, thanks to Boss Deng and the mecha manufacturer behind her, we got a 30% discount on this purchase, 30% off, 30% off." As she spoke, the little girl gestured, her lips almost curling into a smile. Yang Hong pursed his lips, guessing that this was the real reason for the little girl's large-scale purchase. Well, whatever the reason, with such a behemoth, Yang Hong's eyes lit up with excitement. Having his own drill bit parts production equipment, in other words, a production line, meaning he could produce any drill bit he wanted. He even envisioned a super mech adorned with drill bits. Drill bits on its left hand, drill bits on its right, a giant drill bit hanging on its chest, and ultimately, the ability to transform into a supersized drill bit. Wow, that would truly be able to drill anywhere it wanted, making it invincible in the mech world. Yang Hong grew increasingly excited. Wait a minute, Yang Hong suddenly froze. They seemed to be just parts manufacturers, let alone designing mechas. Even the number of parts that could be installed on a mech seemed limited, far from achieving the mech image he envisioned. Damn it, when would they be able to own their own mech manufacturing plant? Yang Hong was stunned, dumbfounded, and stood frozen in place. Upon seeing Yang Hong, team leader Su was extremely displeased, his face darkening, almost ready to glare at him. Their team had only been there a short time, and Yang Hong had already used underhanded tactics to win over all the designers. First, he used contracts to bind them, then he conquered them with component drawings. Now, not only Fang Benrun, but even Su himself was finding it difficult to command the designers. If it weren't for the higher-ups sending him here to gain experience, team leader Su would probably have been forcibly recalled by now. Clearly, this attempt at gaining experience had failed. His life could be described as a complete failure, or rather, ruined by Yang Hong. It was no wonder team leader Su had no respect for Yang Hong. Seeing that Yang Hong's status would undoubtedly rise again once the equipment arrived, he felt a deep resentment. But what could he do? Yang Hong was already able to speak with the big boss of the royal court and seemed to have gained the boss's favor. And he was just a lowly team leader on a foreign assignment. Although he gritted his teeth in hatred, he was powerless to do anything. Helpless, he could only find an excuse to leave. Where could he run to in this mecha junkyard? Naturally, the only option was to drown his sorrows in alcohol at bar number 12. Drunkenness was usually the only solution for losers. Yang Hong glanced at the little girl's excitement, his eyes twitching. Although he knew clearly that the large piece of equipment in front of him was a drill bit parts production line, damn it, it wasn't even installed yet. Equipment installation was none of Yang Hong's business, he was clearly just a guy who enjoyed the fruits of others' labor. After finding another reason, Yang Hong also left the parts processing plant. Next, Yang Hong went to the metal processing plant. The sealed workshop that used to process scrap metal from mechas had long been demolished. For a while, Yang Hong went to Haiyang City to have fun, but at that time, the military was urging for supplies, so the little girl quickly sent someone to purchase some metal for processing. Unexpectedly, after calculating, she found that purchasing metal was cheaper than processing scrap metal from mechas. In a fit of anger, the little girl immediately had the sealed workshop demolished. Although the metal converted by the devouring worm was of high purity, most of it was absorbed by the dead worms, leaving only a small portion. Quality without quantity, what good is that? Zaba, a military spy, valued the processing of scrap metal from mechas, but the military clearly had no intention of subsidizing it. In other words, no matter how much scrap metal they processed, aside from exchanging a small amount for pure metal, they received absolutely no subsidy. Given Su Yinru's personality, it would be a miracle if she continued. Fortunately, by then the devouring worm had recovered some of its energy, so it no longer cared about converting the scrap metal. After all, no matter how much it converted, it couldn't possibly recover all its energy at once, unless it devoured an entire planet. And devouring a planet clearly meant devouring Yang Hong's logistics base. That was even more impossible. Chapter 134 News of the Wild Wolf Gang. The equipment installation looks like it will take at least 2 or 3 days. With it done, Yang Hong was free again. What can you do? As a big boss, he had plenty of free time. Unfortunately, Uncle Zaba still needed to resolve the Master Hong incident, otherwise he could have gotten his hands on Yang Hong to experience flying mechas. Ever since witnessing Yang Hong's flying mech piloting skills, Zaba had never hesitated to grant him flying requests. But damn it, as long as the Master Hong incident wasn't resolved, Zaba wouldn't give him a friendly look. As the source of this incident, Yang Hong naturally chose to avoid appearing in his sight as much as possible, otherwise, it would be difficult to provoke hatred. With nothing else to do, Yang Hong made a rare appearance in the 12 bar. Now, as a prominent figure in the mech junkyard, Yang Hong was quite the celebrity, enjoying immense popularity in the 12 bar. Putting aside the wild wolf industry, his own growth story alone was a role model for many lower-class individuals. Moreover, Yang Hong's rise to power began in the 12 bar. As soon as Yang Hong appeared, many people recognized him, especially the engineering mech pilots who had purchased the #1 Wild Wolf drill bit. They had made a fortune recently. These pilots, who hadn't been selected for construction, had all stayed here gambling. Fortunately, there were still quite a few suckers who deliberately came to throw money at him. Now, seeing Yang Hong, they all rushed forward to curry favor. The waiters immediately notified Gu Fengren. Knowing Yang Hong was coming, Gu Fengren appeared like lightning. Who was Yang Hong? He was the one who had run away with the daughter Gu Fengren had raised for over 10 years. After Su Yinru left bar number 12, a whole bunch of tedious matters fell on Gu Fengren's shoulders. Not only that, but in order to build the wild wolf industry, she had made up a lot of excuses to avoid returning. Gu Fengren was furious. If it weren't for this huge pile of trivial matters, he might have been waiting for her at the parts center every day. The moment Yang Hong appeared, it would be strange if Gu Fengren didn't show up. Yang Hong had barely sat down and ordered a drink when Gu Fengren arrived. Gu Fengren's arrival was anything but pleasant. He immediately launched into tirade against Yang Hong. "You brat, have you been bullying my daughter, bullying a little girl?" Yang Hong's eyes widened. What a joke. He was lucky she hadn't bullied him. Besides, that little girl, besides being inherently violent, possessed incredible strength, Anyone who dared to bully her was doomed. He didn't know where Su Yinru's strength came from. Even Yang Hong's body, modified by the devouring worm, was left with small black and red fist marks. This showed just how strong she was. Sometimes, Yang Hong was curious about why Su Yinru possessed such superhuman strength. I said, "Old Gu." Before Yang Hong could finish speaking, Gu Fengren glared at him sharply. Old Gu, this kid actually called him Old Gu, wasn't he just asking for trouble? Boss Gu, Yang Hong said awkwardly, trying to change the subject for the time being. What's your girl's background? How does she have such super strength? None of your business. Mentioning Su Yinru, Gu Fengren's face immediately changed. You didn't come here just to sound me out, did you? No, no. Yang Hong waved his hands repeatedly. He wasn't just here out of boredom. Besides, if he really wanted to find out about the girl's background, he would have come long ago. Why wait until now? HMPH. Even if you want to sound me out, I'll tell you straight, your current status is far inferior to hers. Gu Fengren snorted coldly, then pulled out a chair and sat opposite Yang Hong. Yang Hong was surprised, blinking his eyes. How far? As far as you can imagine. Yang Hong was dissatisfied. There must be some distance. Gu Fengren, she's on one street, and you're at the other end of the alley. Oh, it's just one street, it's not that far. Yang Hong shrugged. The problem is the length of this street. Gu Fengren tapped the table with his hand. Length? Understand. How long is it? Yang Hong asked curiously again. Gu Fengren pointed to the ceiling. Can you see the sun from here? Of course not from here, but you can barely see it outside. The distance between her and you is about the same. PFFT. Yang Hong, who had just taken a sip of water, spat it out. What kind of analogy is this? Is he being called a frog in a well? Besides, Su Yinru is with him every day. Is it really necessary? The distance of the sun? Yang Hong rolled his eyes. Rarely seeing Yang Hong so frustrated, Gu Fengren laughed. He beckoned to the waiter. Bring me some wine. At the same time, he glanced at Yang Hong. You kid, you're a grown man. Why are you still drinking water? A man should drink. No. Yang Hong shook his head vigorously. He was just here to relax, not to drink. Besides, he really didn't like drinking much in this time and space. Soon, a waiter respectfully brought over a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. Yang Hong, who had said he wouldn't drink, ordered quite a few soft drinks. Gu Fengren wanted to drink, so he couldn't just sit there idly. He had to have something to drink too. Kid, you're in trouble again, Gu Fengren said as he poured the wine. Trouble? Yang Hong was puzzled. His business was booming, how could he possibly be in trouble? Boss Wild Wolf is here, Gu Fengren said. What Boss Wild Wolf? Yang Hong asked, blinking. The leader of the Wild Wolf gang. Wild Wolf? Oh, Yang Hong nodded, seemingly understanding. However, after a moment, his eyes widened in surprise. You mean the Wild Wolf gang? Gu Fengren nodded silently. Yang Hong immediately perked up, becoming much more alert. The Wild Wolf gang had arrived at just the right time. Most of his money was being held tightly by the little girl, and he was short of cash. The Wild Wolf gang has always been a benefactor to Yang Hong. Damn, their arrival means they're just throwing money away again. Where? Yang Hong excitedly looked around. Gu Fengren. Who told you the Wild Wolf gang leader is in our number 12 bar? Gu Fengren frowned. Yang Hong seemed genuinely looking forward to their appearance. What was going on? Did Yang Hong know how terrifying the Wild Wolf gang leader was? The Wild Wolf gang leader, with his bare hands, had built the infamous Wild Wolf gang in District 32, and had even managed to establish connections with high-ranking military officials, quickly consolidating his power. This Wild Wolf gang leader was ruthless and extremely vengeful. According to Gu Fengren's information, the Wild Wolf gang leader had been secretly engaged in some activities recently, which led to Yang Hong's sabotaging the expansion of the Mecha junkyard, leaving him unable to handle the situation personally. Instead, he sent his subordinate, Tong Xianjun, but unexpectedly, even Tong Xianjun suffered a setback at Yang Hong's hands. This time, the Wild Wolf gang leader came in person. His intentions were probably not good. Gu Fengren's reminder to Yang Hong was to warn him to be careful and not fall into the wolf boss's trap. Chapter 135 The Pretty Boy Incident. Although Gu Fengren repeatedly warned him, Yang Hong didn't take it seriously. The Wild Wolf gang members were all incredibly important people. He'd welcome them with open arms. Why avoid them? Seeing Yang Hong's expression, Gu Fengren didn't know what to say and quickly changed the subject. He beckoned again, signaling his subordinate to bring a laptop from his office. "Kid, see if this guy is one of yours." Gu Fengren handed the laptop to Yang Hong. Yang Hong took it and saw a video playing on the screen. In the video, at an inconspicuous table in bar number 12, a person was seen drinking alone, looking depressed. Then, a person wearing a black cloak appeared and, after a few words, led the drinking man away from bar number 12. Huh? Yang Hong recognized the drinking man. Damn, it was definitely that pretty boy, team leader Su. But what was going on with this guy? And what about the person in the black cloak? That kind of clothing was fashionable these days. It was really strange. Yang Hong tilted his head, looking at Gu Fengren with a puzzled expression. "Because my little darling also has shares in your business, I keep an eye on everyone who works there," Gu Fengren said. PFFT. Yang Hong spat out another mouthful of his drink, his eyes nearly popping out of their sockets. Keep an eye on everyone? Did that mean he was included? In other words, everything, including his privacy, was gone? Yang Hong remembered that when he went to the restroom, he'd often just casually pull out his penis and ejaculate. Didn't that mean his penis size had been completely exposed? Thinking of this, Yang Hong almost spat on Gu Fengren's head. Gu Fengren, completely oblivious to Yang Hong's change in expression, continued drinking, saying, "As soon as this guy left, I immediately sent people to keep an eye on him." "Do you know what we heard? What happened?" Yang Hong replied irritably. At this moment, he was still thinking about when he would be followed, and he was determined to make sure that damn bug came out and prevent such situations from happening again. Privacy, privacy, is this ever going to end? Yang Hong was speechless with anger. That's the boss of Saber-Toothed Tiger, Saber-Toothed Tiger, suddenly hearing about an animal, and an ancient, extinct one at that. Yang Hong's interest was piqued again. That's right, Saber-Toothed Tiger, like the royal court of the mech warriors, is a large mech manufacturer. Damn it. Yang Hong glanced at Gu Fengren, his anger instantly vanishing. He thought some ancient, extinct creature had appeared, but it turned out to be just a mech manufacturer. You're now caught up in the chaos between several mech manufacturers. Gu Fengren took a big gulp of wine. Chaos between mech manufacturers? Yang Hong was taken aback, his eyes widening as he blinked. What was going on? They were just a parts center, specializing in selling mech parts. Okay, even if the parts processing plant was established, they were still just a small manufacturer producing mech parts. Why were the big mech manufacturers targeting them? No, it seems the more he thinks about it, the further he's straying from the topic. Now he just wants to know what's going on with that pretty boy? Yang Hong's gaze was fixed on Gu Fengren. That kid seems to have made some kind of deal with the boss of Sabertooth. Gu Fengren shrugged. Corporate espionage, this kind of thing happens frequently between manufacturers. You don't mean that pretty boy is preparing to become a professional corporate spy? Yang Hong blinked. Yet, Gu Fengren nodded. Damn it. Yang Hong jumped up and rushed out of bar 12 like lightning. He had no desire to stay. Because that pretty boy was the leader of the design team, and the component drawings that Deadbug had redesigned were still in the hands of those designers. Damn it. Yang Hong cursed inwardly. Gu Fengren was stunned at first, then flew into rage and jumped up. However, by then, Yang Hong had already disappeared. Gu Fengren was furious and beckoned to his underlings. Aren't you guys blind? You let that kid get away, he hasn't even paid the bill yet. The underling looked aggrieved, he didn't dare stop Yang Hong. Wasn't Yang Hong the son-in-law? Besides, Gu Fengren, the boss, was already sitting at the same table with Yang Hong. If he really tried to stop him, he'd definitely please neither side. Helpless, this subordinate could only endure Gu Fengren's torrent of abuse, his eyes brimming with tears, practically cascading down his cheeks. At the parts processing factory, in the designer's office, Yang Hong reappeared. The designers were incredibly respectful to him. The reasons were simple. Firstly, they had signed a confidentiality agreement. Secondly, the big boss of the royal court had spoken. Once this matter was resolved, they would likely be transferred to the parts processing factory, at which point Yang Hong would become their big boss. And most importantly, Yang Hong's 3 secondary design drawings of the parts had completely won over these designers. For true designers, as long as their livelihood was secured, they were rational people. There was only one way to win over such people, to possess abilities that surpassed theirs. And Yang Hong was undoubtedly such a person. With his extraordinary accessory design skills, almost all the designers bowed their heads before him. Of course, all the so-called designs by Yang Hong were actually created by the devouring insect. If these designers knew they were inferior even to an insect, they would probably be so ashamed they'd cover their heads and bang their heads against the wall. "Where are my designs?" Yang Hong asked directly, holding out his hand. "Designs? What designs?" The designer with the thickest skin stepped forward. At this moment, this man had become the representative of the group of designers. In Fang Benren's absence, he usually took charge. There was no way around it. There weren't many people with skin as thick as his, let alone designers. Normally, designers were the kind of people whose skin was as thin as paper, easily punctured. Yang Hong stared with wide eyes. "My accessory designs. The accessory designs that have already been redesigned. It seems that Supervisor Fang took them. Quickly, find Fang Benren." Yang Hong's face turned ugly. Soon, Fang Benren arrived. "The diagram? It seems Team Leader Su took it." Fang Benren was taken aback at first, then answered. "Damn it." Yang Hong's eye twitched. He was still a step too late. Although there was a video, without concrete evidence, he couldn't accuse that pretty boy of being a corporate spy, planning to sell the parts diagram to the boss of some tiger company. Who would believe that? That pretty boy was their team leader, and rumor had it he had some connections. Right now, he just hoped the pretty boy hadn't made the deal yet, otherwise everything was over. Damn it. They'd already bought all the equipment. If something went wrong, they'd probably lose everything. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 136 Repackaging. The shameless designer, seeing Yang Hong pressing him, couldn't help but ask, "Boss Yang, what happened? What else could it be?" The drawings were almost sold off. Yang Hong's eyes widened, almost exploding with anger. However, he held back. After all, these designers were decent enough, and Yang Hong remembered this shameless one. "What's your name?" "My name is Chen Long." Excited to have his name mentioned in front of his future boss, the shameless designer became excited. "Alright, Chen Long, find that idiot. Team Leader Su right now," Yang Hong ordered. "I have Team Leader Su's contact information." Fang Benren's expression wasn't good. He was clearly the supervisor. Why was he being bypassed and a mere designer being contacted? Although Chen Long was a bit shameless, he was the head of this team. Finding the team leader should be his responsibility. Then contact him quickly. Yang Hong waved his hand impatiently. Soon, Team Leader Su answered the call. "Team Leader, Boss Yang wants to see your parts drawings," Fang Benren called out hurriedly. "Oh, okay, I'll be right back." It seemed like he wasn't the only one on Team Leader Su's end. Yang Hong immediately became unhappy. "How long will it take?" "I don't have time." As soon as Yang Hong's voice came out, Team Leader Su's end fell silent. After a while, his voice rang out again. "Boss Yang, why are you in such a hurry to see me? Damn it, I told you, you pretty boy, to get back here right now and give me back the drawings. Didn't you hear me?" Yang Hong was furious. Team Leader Su, Fang Benren, the group of designers. After a long while, Team Leader Su's exasperated voice rang out again. "Yang Hong, I'm calling you boss out of respect. I'm a member of the Royal Court of Imperial Guards. You can't yell at me." He actually dared to yell at him, a pretty boy, on the spot. How could he save face in front of all the designers after this? Moreover, Yang Hong was merely the owner of a small parts center. Even with his status as the owner of a future parts factory, compared to mecha manufacturers, he was nothing but a drop in the ocean. He could easily trample him underfoot. "Is that really so?" Yang Hong tilted his head back, picked his nose, and said nonchalantly, "I'll only give you 10 minutes, no, 5 minutes. If I don't see the blueprints within 5 minutes, I'll immediately let the big boss of the royal court see if I can control this pretty boy." Yang Hong was someone who had spoken directly with the big boss of the royal court, and the big boss actually thought highly of him. Even when Yang Hong had a group of designers sign a kidnapping contract, the boss just casually mentioned it and then left it at that. Team Leader Su was completely speechless. And, pretty boy? Who dared to call him that? After a long while, his resentful voice finally came through the electronic bracelet. "I'll be right back." HMPH. You think you can mess with me? You're not even worth a second thought. Yang Hong snorted. You, Yang Hong pointed at Chen Long, when that pretty boy comes back, make him return the blueprints to me immediately. As for Fang Benrun, Yang Hong couldn't be bothered with him. Last time, he casually tossed a contract aside, and this guy immediately informed the pretty boy. So in Yang Hong's eyes, the two of them were definitely in cahoots. No wonder they weren't friendly. After speaking, Yang Hong turned and left. However, he had just returned to the studio when Chen Long rushed over, holding an electronic notebook. Boss Yang, Chen Long carefully handed over the electronic notebook. This speed. Yang Hong's face darkened again. That pretty boy was definitely nearby, not far away. Right under his nose, he dared to say he'd be here in 10 minutes? The pretty boy didn't come. Yang Hong's eyes widened. Boss Yang, this, although he didn't know why the two had turned against each other on the spot, even someone as thick-skinned as Chen Long felt that it wasn't appropriate for the two to meet in the current situation. When gods clash, it's always the small fry who get hurt. As one of those small fry, Chen Long naturally wouldn't let the two meet. Yang Hong snatched the laptop, waving it away impatiently. Get lost. Receiving the instruction, Chen Long moved with lightning speed, leaving Yang Hong almost dumbfounded. Damn it! Yang Hong's eyes twitched. At this moment, the devouring worm appeared, transforming into a net-like structure and covering the laptop without even greeting Yang Hong, clicking away. After a while, the devouring worm spoke. Yang Hong, the data in this laptop seems to have been copied. What does that mean? Could it be that he was a step too slow? Yang Hong was first stunned, then furious. However, this wasn't the time to be angry. He had to solve this problem first, otherwise the produced parts would definitely become commonplace, unsellable, and end up gathering dust in the warehouse, and then, if they're just gathering dust, what good will it do? Then, Yang Hong's face darkened. Now there are only two paths, the devouring worm said. First, we abandon these three-component blueprints and design new components. Second, we redesign these three-component blueprints. Which method do you think is best? Yang Hong asked impatiently before the worm could finish. This wasn't about enjoying himself. What was the point of analyzing the process? He only needed the result. Naturally, the first one, the devouring worm replied. Under normal circumstances, most people would choose the former, but it requires ample time. Is it really that easy to redesign a blueprint and then perform a standardized secondary design? Actually, Yang Hong was lucky. After all, he received the news in advance. Because many component manufacturers suffered setbacks from the start, and precisely for this reason, their hard-earned blueprints were stolen, and then they watched their manufactured components become commonplace, ultimately leading to their demise. But Yang Hong had a devouring worm, and this worm had countless component blueprints in its mind, plus its design level far surpassed that of everyone else on this planet. Redesigning a blueprint would only take it a night or two. But Yang Hong couldn't swallow this insult. Damn it, they dared to steal my image. This is intolerable. Yang Hong needed to give those people a good slap in the face. Redesign? No, that would only encourage image theft. You damn bug, is there any other way besides this? Yang Hong was furious. The devourer rolled its eyes. It was just about to suggest a second solution when Yang Hong interrupted it. Repackage, the devourer said. Repackage? Yang Hong's eyes widened. To prevent tampering, the devourer explained. Apparently, tamper-proof technology is also known as packaging technology in the universe. Repackaging means redesigning a new tamper-proof technology. 2 chapters today. Chapter 137, A Basket of Questions. The devouring worm had designed 5 Entitas assembly technologies. The 3 blueprints in Yang Hong's hands used the 4th one. Originally, Yang Hong hadn't planned to give these Entitas assembly technologies to Principal Fang, but he couldn't resist the money. Moreover, he had a plan to use the sale of these 3 parts to greatly boost the reputation of his Entitas assembly technology, hoping to attract more investment from Principal Fang. Although he only took a 10% cut, the snowball effect was significant, especially since it wasn't just a few cents, but billions. A few rolls and the money would pour in. But now things were different. The electronic notebook had been copied, and the snowball effect was turning into a joke. And it wasn't a funny joke at all. Hearing the devouring worm's explanation, Yang Hong's eyes blinked, and he immediately perked up. You're designing a 6th Entitas assembly technology. No, The devouring worm conjured a hand and waved it in the air. Oh! Yang Hong was dumbfounded. After a pause, the devouring worm nodded. Well, you could say that. Holy crap. Yang Hong's eyes twitched. This damned bug hadn't learned many good things, but it had picked up a whole host of bad habits. What was going on? Why not just say it directly? Actually, constantly designing new anti-tampering technologies, not only will your creativity run out quickly, but it's also incredibly mentally taxing. Too much mental tax, too much creative tax, that's not something a designer should be thinking about, the devouring bug said. Design is about playing with creativity, burning your brain? If it doesn't burn your brain, if it doesn't play with creativity, is it still design? Yang Hong practically rolled his eyes at the devouring bug. Secondary encapsulation, the devouring bug patiently explained. Damn it, what's secondary encapsulation? Yang Hong coldly stared at the little face in his palm. How so? The devouring bug thought for a moment, its little black eyes darting around, before continuing. Secondary encapsulation is combining two anti-tampering technologies into one, encapsulating it again. Yang Hong's mind was practically spinning. Let me give you an analogy, the devouring worm said again. It's like using the first anti-dis assembly technology, and then using a second anti-dis assembly technology on top of that. This time, Yang Hong understood. He rolled his eyes. It was just adding another anti-dis assembly design on top of the original one. Did it have to be so serious? However, the idea of secondary encapsulation sounded quite sophisticated, and Yang Hong's mood improved. He immediately made a decision. Secondary encapsulation it is, let those guys dare to steal his designs. But there was another problem, no matter how many times it was encapsulated, the core was still those three component designs. Moreover, these designs had already been copied. Drill bits are compared in terms of hardness. Our drill bits use wild wolf alloy number 1, which is a rare hard metal on this planet. Unless the other side also has a similar new alloy, they can't surpass us. HMPH. The devouring worm conjured a small hand and rubbed its chin. What if there really is a similar new alloy? Yang Hong pressed. Electrical energy, bioelectric energy, the devouring worm reminded him. Actually, it had quite a few metal formulas, but the technology was too advanced. Besides, it hadn't been long. If it were to produce another one all at once, Yang Hong would definitely become a key target of the military, which would be a huge problem for its return to space. Moreover, on this planet, there were things that couldn't be solved simply by electricity. This method was both simple, convenient, and quick. Bioelectric energy. Yang Hong felt like a crow had flown over his head, and 1,000 galloping horses were about to break out in his mind. Don't worry, it's fine. Bioelectric energy won't kill you. Seeing the atmosphere was off, the devouring worm shrank back into its body while explaining. Bioelectric energy wouldn't kill you, but the damage would definitely be more than 10,000. Black lines popped out of Yang Hong's forehead. Secondary encapsulation was a piece of cake for the devouring worm, a matter of just one night. Yang Hong hadn't mentioned the secondary encapsulation of the design to anyone, and he also hadn't revealed the matter of the pretty boy yet. Although he disliked the pretty boy, he wasn't Yang Hong's employee, and besides, he was currently on his honeymoon with the royal court, so it wasn't wise to cause trouble. The equipment arrived, the blueprints were ready, and so, production of the parts began. Seeing everything was on track, Yang Hong planned to take a long nap. But just as he lay down, a little girl's voice rushed in from outside. Yang Hong, something's happened. Something terrible, damn it. Yang Hong was startled and jumped out of bed. The little girl didn't explain, dragging him straight to the metal processing plant. At the plant, he saw parts piled up everywhere, almost filling the entire workshop, with a group of employees looking distressed around them. Yang Hong walked over, casually picked one up, and tossed it in his hand. What happened? Oh, the little girl's eyes widened, her mouth agape. Inside the workshop, the employees were dumbfounded, staring at the parts in Yang Hong's hand, their eyes twitching occasionally. After a moment, the young girl finally reacted, her expression excited. Yang Hong, you have a task now. A big question mark appeared above Yang Hong's head. Move all these parts to the parts processing plant's production line, the young girl said. Holy crap! Yang Hong almost dropped the parts in his hands. What the hell was going on? Was she rushing him to be a porter? Absolutely not, Yang Hong refused on the spot. These parts are big and heavy, The employees can't move them to the parts processing plant. If they're not moved, we won't be able to produce any parts, the young girl explained. No, Yang Hong shook his head. He was the big boss. He'd never heard of a big boss personally doing heavy work. Besides, he'd finally found some time to rest properly. How could he work? No, Yang Hong shook his head vehemently. The young woman was furious. She pointed at the group of employees. Do you think they're all like you, able to pick up parts so easily? It seemed they were. Yang Hong looked at the group of employees with their thin arms and short legs and nodded. However, even so, he wasn't going to be a porter. Yang Hong thought for a moment, tilted his head back, and picked his nose. Isn't there an engineering mech? Labor. You think it doesn't cost anything? The young woman exploded. She wanted to save money on anything related to money, especially if it wasn't a crucial expense. It's just a few dollars. Yang Hong rolled his eyes. He wanted to work? No way. If there was an engineering mech, he'd use that. As for the young woman wanting to save even a few dollars, Yang Hong immediately had another idea. He beckoned to one of the employees. Get that pretty boy here. Pretty boy. The young woman was surprised. Chapter 138 Borrowing the Mech. Team leader Su reluctantly appeared in the workshop. He gritted his teeth as he looked at Yang Hong, but his face immediately lit up with a smile when he looked at Su Yinru. His expression shifted so quickly, it was comparable to a professional face-changing artist. However, Yang Hong wasn't there to watch him play this act. Connect me to your superiors, Yang Hong said casually. Contact superiors? Team leader Su's face changed instantly, his eyes twitching incessantly. Realizing that team leader Su was the so-called gigolo, the young girl almost burst out laughing, but at this moment she was also confused. Why do you want to contact the royal court of the Imperial Guard? Team leader Su perked up his ears. They're a mecha manufacturer, so naturally I'm asking them to borrow a batch of mechas, Yang Hong said. Borrow? Right. The young girl clapped her hands. Why hadn't she thought of this cost-effective method? Yang Hong, you're really something. The young girl admired Yang Hong from the bottom of her heart. Yang Hong tilted his head back and hummed. Team leader Su's heart finally calmed down. He had thought Yang Hong was going to complain to the higher-ups. But borrowing a mecha? Thinking of this reason, team leader Su chuckled inwardly, even managing to mutter, country bumpkin, borrowing a mecha from a mecha manufacturer? Was that even possible? Did they really think mecha manufacturers were charities? What is a businessman? If you don't squeeze every last penny out of others, are you even a businessman? However, since the big boss thought highly of this country bumpkin, to avoid being reported later, he had no choice but to contact the higher-ups. After the call connected, he didn't speak, but directly extended his wrist to Yang Hong. Damn, this hand smelled a bit sweaty. Yang Hong pinched his nose before speaking. I'm Yang Hong, I'm looking for your boss. Who is Yang Hong? After the last incident, the higher-ups of the royal court remembered him. Suddenly, he came to see the big boss, and the higher-ups didn't dare say a word, going straight up the chain of command until the big boss appeared. It's you again, kid. What do you want? Even through the electronic bracelet, the big boss's aura was palpable. While Yang Hong's employees were unfazed, team leader Su stiffened up, her posture becoming extremely formal. I've run into some trouble, Yang Hong said. Upon hearing this, team leader Su felt guilty, her face turning pale, beads of sweat forming on her forehead, her eyes fixed nervously on Yang Hong. What trouble? The big boss asked, somewhat surprised. I need a batch of engineering mechas. Could you borrow 100 or so? Yang Hong asked casually. Big boss, team leader Su Yinru, all the employees, silence. An eerie silence. 100 or so engineering mechas, and you want to borrow them? The big boss on the other end of the electronic bracelet fell silent. Everyone in the workshop quieted down. You kid, what do you mean borrow? 100 or so. After a long pause, the big boss's exasperated voice finally rang out again. Do you think I'm a charity? Su Yinru wiped the sweat from her brow. She also felt Yang Hong was being too rash. She had only planned to borrow 2 or 3, let alone over 100. She herself wouldn't have been able to manage that either. Team leader Su, though still standing upright, had a flushed face and his eyes twitched almost to his forehead. What? You're not a mecha manufacturer? You don't even have 100 or so engineering mechas. Yang Hong was puzzled. We are a mecha manufacturer, but 100 or so mechas is a huge order. Even our warehouse only has 100 or so at most. You're planning to borrow them all right off the bat. The big boss was furious. Besides, we're a combat mecha manufacturer, not an engineering mecha manufacturer, the big boss said irritably. There are only 100 or so in the warehouse. Yang Hong clicked his tongue, then added, all right then, let's start with 10 or so. 10 or so. The big boss was getting angry. No, and I already said, we produce combat mechas, not engineering mechas. Then how many can you borrow? Yang Hong didn't care whether they were combat or engineering mechas. He only had one purpose, transportation. The big boss was completely speechless. After a long while, he finally spoke. I give up on you, kid. Here's what we'll do. Have team leader Sue go and rent a few engineering mechas. We, the Royal Court of the Royal Guard, will pay for this, he added at the end. That pretty boy, he's right here beside me. Yang Hong gestured towards team leader Sue. You? Team leader Sue was furious. A pretty boy was one thing, but why bring him up in front of the big boss? What about his reputation? Alright, with the matter settled, the big boss of the Royal Court of the Royal Guard impatiently unilaterally cut off the communication. Faced with Yang Hong, even the big boss felt a little uneasy. He began to sense Yang Hong's unreliability and harbored some concerns about the collaboration. Alright, you go with him to pick up the engineering mechas. With this matter resolved, Yang Hong planned to continue sleeping in. However, at this moment, team leader Sue grabbed Yang Hong. What did you just call me, pretty boy? Not only did he call him that on the spot, but he also yelled it in front of the big boss. Did he really think he was an idiot, someone he could mess with as he pleased? Let go, let go. Yang Hong pushed him away. Let me tell you, don't mess with me. I've been to number 12, haven't I? HMPH. Upon hearing this, team leader Sue's expression changed drastically. What are you trying to say? HMPH. Yang Hong snorted a few more times and turned to leave. At this moment, he didn't plan to reveal the matter of commercial espionage yet. After all, he still needed this guy to report the expenses. Everything was still focused on producing new components first. Soon, 5 engineering mechas entered the metal processing plant. Because the details of the parts processing plant involved trade secrets, Su Yinru signed a contract with 5 mecha pilots to rent engineering mechas. Initially, the 5 pilots disagreed, but couldn't resist the exorbitant rental fees Su Yinru quoted, and immediately agreed. After all, the money would be charged to the royal court, and the little girl wasn't going to skimp on it. While signing the contract and collecting payment, the monitoring devices on the engineering mechas also needed to be temporarily removed. The parts center had plenty of talent for mecha piloting. Almost half of Uncle Zaba's hundreds of men held mecha pilot licenses. 5 people were randomly selected and began operating the engineering mechas to transport large components to the parts processing plant's production line. Problem solved, everything ready, and parts production officially began. Watching the parts production process, Su Yinru immediately understood the benefits of parts standardization. The entire production process was like playing Tetris. It was simply stacking blocks according to blueprints, with no difficulties whatsoever, and it was very fast. Is this really alright? She frowned as she looked at a drill bit assembly that had already been produced. Chapter 139 Antitis Assembly Test, Part 1. Royal Court, a massive industrial park. At its very center stands the tallest and most luxurious building in the entire park, the Royal Court headquarters. On the top floor, behind the office, the big boss, who had just cut off communication, was furious and almost slammed his fist on the table. But unlike Yang Hong, who seemed to act recklessly and completely unreliable, he wasn't angry. Yang Hong's disdainful tone towards team leader Su kept replaying in his mind, and the big boss felt something was amiss. He reached for a button on his desk. Soon, footsteps approached, and then the door opened, revealing a young woman dressed as a secretary. "Boss, you wanted to see me?" the young secretary asked respectfully. "Investigate what problems have arisen between the design team and the parts processing plant we're currently collaborating with," the big boss ordered. The young secretary nodded and turned to leave. She returned quickly, less than 15 minutes later. "Boss, here are the documents." The young secretary respectfully handed over the prepared materials. The big boss took the documents, flipped through them, and then frowned. "What, even Sabertooth's people went to the Mecha junkyard, huh?" This guy met with team leader Su twice. In District 32, there are 3 mecha manufacturers, Royal Court, Sabertooth, and Great Demon. Except for Sabertooth, which holds a beast-type mecha license, The other two hold humanoid mecha licenses, both for combat. It's inevitable for companies in the same industry to clash. However, Royal Court and Sabertooth, which produce completely different models of mecha, are actually bitter rivals. The reason is probably poaching, but the big boss shrugged, indicating he'd forgotten who they poached. Lowly employees, unless exceptionally capable, hard-working, and loyal, are just sinecures, not even worthy of being called important figures. For business people, competitors are usually the real focus. This time, it seems the same thing happened again. Sabertooth has poached people right under his nose once more. Is it really just a simple poaching? A cold glint flashed in the big boss's eyes. After years of fighting, connecting a few clues, the big boss immediately sensed the other side's conspiracy. It seemed poaching was just the prelude, disrupting the standardization of mecha parts was the key. While standardizing mecha parts had always been difficult to implement, the impact of its implementation and widespread adoption was unimaginable. After all, this was a project even the Star Palace couldn't accomplish. Damn Sabertooth. Damn Shiminkson. The big boss's face was ashen. Arrange a flying mecha for me. I'm going to the mecha junkyard too, boss. Should we remind Wild Wolf Enterprises? The young secretary asked. That kid, the big boss frowned, then laughed loudly. That guy probably already found out. Forget it, no need to arrange another flying mecha, the young secretary blinked. By the way, when will Wild Wolf Enterprises release new parts? The big boss asked. According to the information they submitted, it should take about a week. Okay, keep an eye on this. Once the release date arrives, notify me in advance. I need to go there personally to see what tricks Shiminkson is up to. Although he said this, the big boss was actually very curious to see what that unreliable little boss was up to. However, at this moment, Yang Hong was fast asleep in bed. Well, damn it. He was practically drooling. The next day, the sun was high in the sky, but Yang Hong was still lazily lying in bed, unwilling to get up. Suyinaru's voice rang out again outside the door. Yang Hong, get up. I know you're in there. Yang Hong's lazy mood suddenly vanished. He quickly pulled the blanket over his head, leaving only a small part of his head sticking out. Bang! A loud crash, and the door was slammed open. Seeing Yang Hong's state, Suyinaru was both amused and annoyed. Was he burying his head in the sand? Was he blinded by a leaf? She grabbed Yang Hong and headed for the door. Before they'd gone more than a few steps, Suyinaru realized something was wrong. Looking down, she was immediately dumbfounded. Why are you still holding onto the blanket? I'm asleep. I can't hear anything you say, Yang Hong said, covering his ears with a blanket. Suyinaru chuckled and pulled the blanket away, but Yang Hong still clung tightly. In desperation, she gave him a flick on the forehead. What happened now? Yang Hong asked, covering his head with his hands, looking aggrieved. At the same time, Yang Hong secretly resolved that next time he would definitely apply for land and build a small villa. When he slept alone, he would lock all the doors and windows tightly and see who could drag him out in his sleep. Test, Suyinaru said, dragging Yang Hong directly to the parts processing factory. The parts processing factory. 3 parts were already finished. Suyinaru had someone pick out one of each type and line them up. It has to be said, parts are only truly understood once they're finished. When they were still on blueprints, Yang Hong was completely bewildered. The first set of parts was a large drill bit assembly with 3 drill bits arranged in a triangular shape at the front. The second set looked like 2 saw blades placed one above the other and joined together, supposedly forming a drill bit. The last set was a triangular track. Except for the saw blade assembly, Yang Hong couldn't identify any drill bits no matter how he looked at it. The other 2 sets were immediately obvious. What kind of drill bit is this? Yang Hong's eyes twitched as he secretly asked the devouring worm. Milling drill. What do you mean by drilling first and then drilling later? Yang Hong blinked. Now it was the devouring worm's turn to twitch. Alright, you don't need to worry about it. Someone knows it's a drill bit anyway. Well, Yang Hong nodded helplessly. Seeing the parts stacked together like Tetris blocks, Suyinaru was very skeptical of their reliability. It was too simple, unbelievably simple. Therefore, Suyinaru summoned Yang Hong and Song Shuming to test the anti-disassembly performance of the parts. As the big boss and the designer of the parts and anti-disassembly system, Yang Hong had to be present. Song Shuming was the main operator, responsible for the entire disassembly process. Suyinaru's chosen testing method was relatively simple: disassemble according to the diagrams, and then try to reassemble. As for why she needed to look at the diagrams, Suyinaru reasoned, how could she disassemble it without understanding it? Since Yang Hong had already made it clear that without guidance, she could only disassemble it with the diagrams. So she would disassemble it according to the diagrams, since disassembly only accounted for a small portion of her test score. Song Shuming took the electronic notebook handed to him by Yang Hong. He was very excited about the standardized secondary design, and when he saw the diagrams, his eyes lit up. Not bad, not bad, this theory is very good, this design idea is really brilliant, good, the design concept here is really excellent. Song Shuming looked at the component diagrams while circling the components, circling them nearly 30 times, making Suyinru almost dizzy. Designer Song, do you even understand disassembly? There was no way Suyinru wouldn't speak up soon, otherwise his circling would probably continue until the next day. Chapter 140 Anti-Disassembly Test, Part 2. Song Shuming smiled, a slightly awkward smile, and focused his attention back on disassembling the parts. However, as he looked at them, he kept circling around them. This time, he chose the track part. Nearly half an hour later, when everyone was getting impatient, he finally looked up. Is it ready? Suyinru asked eagerly. Yang Hong's expectant gaze also fell on him. Damn it, they'd been waiting for almost an hour. If only he could be lying in bed, how comfortable that would be. Song Shuming shook his head. No, I just wanted to find an assistant. Yang Hong's eye twitched. He almost couldn't resist slapping him away. Could he even let a person get some sleep? Who? Suyinru asked, equally annoyed. Song Shuming scratched his head and smiled sheepishly. My mentor. Mentor? Suyinru blinked, the image of the vice dean of the design department at Taeyang College immediately flashing into her mind. She nodded. All right, as long as your advisor is willing to come, I don't mind. However, Yang Hong wasn't too happy about this. Old Song, how long will it take for that old man to arrive? At this moment, Yang Hong really wanted to lie comfortably in bed. Even if he couldn't sleep, lying down was better than standing there stupidly, at least his back and legs wouldn't ache. At the speed of the flying mech, it'll probably take about 10 minutes, Song Shuming said, while reaching out to fiddle with his electronic bracelet to find his advisor's contact. Designer Song, that old Song. Suddenly, Suyinaru's voice rang out again, but this time, it was much softer. Song Shuming didn't even look up. We won't reimburse the cost of the flying mech. Song Shuming's movements froze. Yang Hong also blinked repeatedly, his lips twitching incessantly. After a long pause, Song Shuming looked up at Suyinru with a strange expression. Well, it seems the academy has specially equipped flying mechas. They have equipped flying mechas? That's great. Suyinru patted her chest, her heart finally calming down. One today, another tomorrow, 100,000 each time. How could they possibly afford that in the long run? As the saying goes, a short pain is worse than a long one, a short hatred is worse than a long hatred. Eliminating this kind of thing once and for all would be a good thing for them. Yang Hong rolled his eyes, opened his mouth, but ultimately held back. Damn it, all he wanted to say was, now they have specially equipped flying mechas, surely they can afford the energy costs? However, remembering the little girl's money-grubbing nature, he ultimately kept quiet. Soon, the vice dean's tired voice came from the other end of Song Shuming's electronic bracelet. Zio-song, what's up, Professor? Are you busy right now? A bit busy. I've been preparing for the anti-disassembly course. Anti-disassembly? Perfect timing. I have a component that's being tested for anti-disassembly technology. Anti-disassembly technology test? What kind of test is it? The vice dean immediately perked up. As per the boss's requirements, it involves disassembly before reassembly, Song Shuming explained. By the way, this component uses a new type of component that has recently undergone standardized secondary design in collaboration with us, standardized secondary design of a component. And a new type of component at that. The vice dean's voice became excited. Zio-song, when are you going to test the anti-disassembly technology? Right now. I'm running into some trouble. Tell me, what trouble? Do you need me to fix it? Yes, Professor, I really need your help this time, but if you're busy, no, not at all. Before Song Shuming could finish, the vice dean responded eagerly, his tone full of energy. Start disassembly now? Wait a minute, I'll be there in about 10 minutes. Beep. Beep, beep. Before Song Shuming could respond, the other party had already cut off the communication. It seemed that Song Shuming was used to this kind of thing and had long since become accustomed to it. Su Yinru and the others were dumbfounded. Was this supposed to be a favor? This was a rip-off. Boss, can we wait another 10 minutes or so? Song Shuming asked Su Yinru. Sure, no problem, Su Yinru nodded. Since there was no expense reimbursement, she could afford to wait another half hour. Another 10 minutes? Yang Hong was genuinely unhappy. His eyes darted around, and he asked Su Yinru, can I go back? Why would you go back? Su Yinru tilted her head, glancing at him. Just a little longer, Yang Hong said, then, seeing the girl's displeased expression, quickly patted his chest and promised, I promise, I won't sleep, I'll just lie down for a bit, and I'll be back as soon as the time is up. You stay put, and don't go anywhere. Su Yinru glared at him. This, Yang Hong was dumbfounded, blinking repeatedly. Who the real boss is, anyway? And what about the boss's privileges? Why can't he enjoy them? Yang Hong felt like two small waterfalls were hanging from his eyes. 10 minutes passed in the blink of an eye. At this moment, the roar of a flying mech echoed in the sky. Su Yinru quickly arranged for her employees to go and greet it. But before her employees could arrive, the vice dean had already found out the location and rushed over in a flurry. Having just arrived, barely out of breath, his eyes lit up the moment he saw the 3 sets of parts. He practically lunged forward, wanting to hug them to his chest. Mentor, these are the parts we need to disassemble, Song Shuming greeted him. The vice dean nodded in response, but his gaze remained fixed on the parts. Mentor, these are the design drawings for the parts. Before Song Shuming could even hand over the electronic notebook, it had vanished from his hand. Excellent, excellent, this theory is very good, this design concept is truly brilliant, good, the design concept here is truly superb. The vice dean's words were exactly the same as Song Shuming's, not just every word, but even the tone was almost identical. These two, they really are master and apprentice. Yang Hong thought to himself. Not only Yang Hong, but even Su Yinru and the other employees present unanimously agreed that if they hadn't confirmed their ordinary master-apprentice relationship, they would have thought the two were related by blood. Mentor, I've looked at all the design drawings for these components, and I've compared them one by one with the 3 sets of components in front of me. But when it comes to actually disassembling them, I don't know where to start. Song Shuming adjusted his glasses. The vice dean nodded, also looking at the component design drawings while circling around the component. And damn it, the component he was circling was almost the same track type as the one Song Shuming had chosen. Damn it, these two definitely have some kind of connection. This time, before Yang Hong could even have an idea, all the employees, including Su Yinru, had the same thought. Chapter 141 Entitled Assembly Test, Part 3. Designer Song, Vice Dean, when are you going to start disassembly? Su Yinru glanced at Song Shuming. Then her gaze fell on the vice dean who was circling the tracked vehicle. She couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Had she made a wrong decision? Fortunately, the two immediately returned to normal after she said that. Song, let's prepare some tools, the vice dean said to Song Shuming. Soon, the two set up a set of disassembly tools in front of the tracked vehicle components, including various sizes of tools and a small crane. Unlike Yang Hong, they couldn't lift those large and heavy components with one hand. With the tools on and the crane pulled, the disassembly work officially began. Here, yes, this is the place, the vice dean observed and pointed out where Song Shuming should start. Wait, no, it should be this position. Suddenly, he glanced at the design drawing on his electronic notebook, then pointed in another direction. No, it doesn't seem to be here either. The vice dean's gaze fell on the design drawing again, and he widened his eyes once more. Yang Hong rolled his eyes. What was all this fuss about? If it were a dead bug, they could just pry it off with both hands, no need for all this trouble. Fortunately, the two vice deans quickly got to work, otherwise, Yang Hong definitely wouldn't have been able to resist and would have jumped in to help. Both were professional parts designers, and their disassembly wasn't like that of ordinary mecha engineers. They moved with extreme care and meticulousness, fearing that a single mistake would damage the entire component. Using the design drawings as a reference, they found a starting point and finally disassembled the first part. It was a bolt the size of a finger. And it took them nearly 30 minutes, carefully tapping it with a small hammer, to finally knock it off. Seeing the progress, Yang Hong was practically cursing under his breath. At this rate, they probably wouldn't have gotten anywhere by tomorrow. The bolts were removed, but the Vice-Dean was stumped about how to proceed. He had thought this was a crucial locking point. Once removed, the entire component would loosen. However, while the bolts were removed, the expected outcome didn't materialize. What was going on? The Vice-Dean and Song Shuming stared at each other, bewildered. Yang Hong couldn't stand it any longer. He turned to Su Yinru and whispered, "I need to go out for a bit, huh?" The little girl's displeased gaze immediately fell on him. "Can't even go to the bathroom." Yang Hong's eyes twitched. Besides, he was the big boss, owning 60% of the shares. Going out meant he'd have to explain himself. Go ahead, go ahead." Su Yinru also realized that the disassembly wouldn't be completed anytime soon, so she waved her hand, freeing Yang Hong. Yang Hong had been waiting for this moment. Once out of the workshop, he vanished in a flash. What the hell was he waiting for? Judging by those two's speed, it would probably take days to finish disassembling. Testing? Is testing even necessary? Disassembly is a problem, let alone reassembling it, Yang Hong muttered, scoffing. Wild Wolf Parts Processing Factory. Some distance from the main entrance, a jet-black private car was parked. Inside, a burly man with a centipede-like scour on his face sat in the back seat, his gaze dark and brooding. His eyes were fixed on the Wild Wolf Parts Processing Factory sign, particularly the word Wild Wolf. His expression one of deep resentment, his eyes practically spitting fire. Beside him sat another man, whom Yang Hong might have vaguely recognized if he were there. This man was Tong Xianjun from the Wild Wolf Gang. He sat silently beside the burly man, his face expressionless. Suddenly, Tong Xianjun saw a figure quickly emerge from the parts processing factory. His eyes narrowed, and he immediately recognized Yang Hong. "Boss, that's him." "That's Yang Hong." Tong Xianjun pointed at Yang Hong and shouted. This card man's furious gaze instantly shifted to Yang Hong. "Boss, should we follow him?" Seeing Yang Hong leave the parts processing plant and head off in another direction, Tong Xianjun quickly asked. This card man raised his hand, gesturing for him to stop. "This guy is highly regarded by the military right now, let's not make contact with him for now." "Then what are we doing here? I just want to see for myself who dares to make money under our Wild Wolf's name." The scarred man gritted his teeth. Tong Xianjun immediately dared not say another word, lest he get into trouble. "Isn't there a red-nosed person in charge at the junkyard?" Suddenly, the scarred man remembered this. There seemed to be such a person, but Tong Xianjun hadn't seen him since arriving at the Wild Wolves' headquarters at the Mecha junkyard. He had only heard that this person had left with two of the Wild Wolves' lesser-known assassins to go on a mission in Haiyang City. "This guy is quite loyal, find him." "I still need him for something." "Yes, I will definitely find this red-nosed person in charge." Tong Xianjun nodded quickly. Tong Xianjun's speed was undeniable. The moment he agreed, he had already located Hong Bao and arranged everything in a single communication. In a prison in Haiyang City, Hong Bao, who was being held captive, suddenly sneezed twice. He looked up blankly. At a time like this, who would be thinking of me? Maybe it's those thugs from the garbage dump. "Hong Bao, you bastard, get over here right now, or I'll make you regret it," a heavily tattooed man shouted from in front of the showerhead. Okay, I'm coming right now." Hong Bao quickened his pace, jogging over and carefully lathering the man with soap. Haha, this guy, calling himself some kind of leader in the Wild Wolf Gang, is a complete disgrace here. Exactly, if he were really a minor leader in the Wild Wolf Gang, someone would have gotten him out long ago. HMPH, if the Wild Wolf Gang really got him out, I'll change my name backwards. That's right, if the Wild Wolf Gang really got him out, I'll willingly eat 3 pounds of shit, and it'll be your shit. The prisoners all sneered at Hong Bao. "Hong Bao, come out, Hong Bao of the Wild Wolf Gang. Someone's here to bail you out, come out now." Suddenly, a prison guard's voice rang out. Hong Bao was startled, then immediately became excited. I am Hong Bao of the Wild Wolf Gang." Watching Hong Bao jog away, the tattooed man was stunned, not even noticing the soap in his hand fall to the ground. The prisoners were also dumbfounded. Who just said to change my name backwards? Suddenly, one of the prisoners remembered this. The prisoner who wrote the name backwards reacted even faster, shouting, "Who is it that volunteered to eat 3 pounds of excrement, and even our excrement?" Thump. A figure suddenly collapsed to the ground, unconscious, his whole body still trembling. Chapter 142 Anti-Disassembly Test, Part 4. Mech Junkyard, Wild Wolf Headquarters. Released from prison and given a new outfit, Hongbao was once again in high spirits. This time, his release was reportedly ordered personally by the Wild Wolf boss. What did this mean? It meant he had caught the boss's eye. Hongbao was ecstatic, feeling like he was walking on clouds, his steps almost floating. Following Tuang Xianjun, Hongbao arrived at the headquarters conference room. "You're Hongbao, indeed a handsome man," a scarred man sized Hongbao up and down, his gaze finally settling on his large red nose. Although his red nose had faded slightly from his time in prison, it didn't diminish Hongbao's distinctive features. Overwhelmed by the sudden praise, Hongbao turned and saw the scarred man, freezing in disbelief. He rubbed his eyes and looked again. "Wild Wolf Boss," Hongbao exclaimed excitedly, striding forward and kneeling on one knee. Hongbao's action startled the Wild Wolf Boss at first, then he burst into laughter. This kind of character, though unassuming, was incredibly loyal and quite likable. Moreover, he always liked clever and emotional people like him. Tong Xianjun, watching from the side, twitched at the corner of his eye. This flattery was practically heaven-defying. No wonder the Wild Wolf Boss remembered him after only seeing him once or twice on screen. "Now there's a mission for you to carry out. If you complete it well, you'll have a place in the Wild Wolf's upper echelons in the future," the Wild Wolf Boss said seemingly casually. Hongbao was completely stunned, blinking uncomprehending. However, he quickly recovered, excitedly replying, "Wild Wolf Boss, anything concerning the Wild Wolf Gang is my business, Hongbao's business. Whatever your orders, I, Hongbao, will follow without hesitation." "A Wild Wolf Gang member who lacks ambition is not a good member," the Wild Wolf Boss nodded in satisfaction. Tong Xianjun raised an eyebrow. It seemed he had to add Hongbao to his list of competitors. "I don't care what methods or means you use, infiltrate Wild Wolf Enterprise and become one of them," the Wild Wolf Boss said. "What?" Hongbao was dumbfounded. Infiltrate Wild Wolf Enterprise? Wasn't it Yang Hong's business? And they even stole the Wild Wolf name. Why did he need to infiltrate? "You infiltrate, then find a way to become one of them, and become our Wild Wolf Gang's important informant within Wild Wolf Enterprise?" "Oh, I see," Hongbao nodded. "But why did he need to infiltrate?" He blinked. "You have one advantage, you're very unique. With your appearance, it's hard to forget you. If you perform well, you can easily become a hot commodity," the Wild Wolf Boss said. "Really?" Hongbao was excited, unconsciously touching his big red nose. How do you know why I specifically chose you for this mission?" A rare smile appeared on the scarred face of the Wild Wolf Gang leader. Hongbao blinked excitedly, his big red nose twitching. "You're very loyal to our Wild Wolf Gang, very worthy of my investment," the Wild Wolf Gang leader said, enunciating each word clearly. Wild Wolf Gang leader, Hongbao was almost moved to tears. Tong Xianjun's gaze was fixed on Hongbao's big red nose, a hint of wanting to replace it in his eyes. Wild Wolf parts processing plant. When Yang Hong returned leisurely after a long nap, he found an extra person in the workshop. He gasped, "Why was this white-bearded old man here?" The person surrounding the track parts was none other than Principal Fang of Heiang Academy. "Finished relieving yourself?" Su Yinru asked with an annoyed look upon seeing Yang Hong. Oh. Yang Hong rubbed his nose. He'd already gone home and slept in late. Lying in bed was much more comfortable than standing here. Besides, damn it, even with the old man with the white beard, there were still 3 of them, and the track components still hadn't been disassembled. Most importantly, Yang Hong looked left and right, and next to the track component seemed to be the same bolt from yesterday. In other words, all 3 of them had only removed 1 bolt in a whole day. "I say, it's been so long, and you've only removed 1 bolt. Is this test even necessary?" Yang Hong retorted. "Mind your own business," Su Yinru blushed. "Precisely because you removed 1 bolt, this test needs to continue. Who knows when 1 bolt might cause the entire component to suddenly fall apart." Yang Hong shrugged, not responding. He knew perfectly well that anti-disassembly technology either didn't remove anything at all, or it only needed 1 or 2 places to instantly disassemble the entire component. He'd witnessed Deadbug's disassembly process back at Heiang Academy. "Yes, that's it, that's right." Just then, Principal Fang suddenly became excited, shouting loudly. While directing the Vice-Dean and Song Shuming, he hurriedly brought over a small crane, and they got to work quickly. The 3 of them worked together, and in the blink of an eye, they removed several more bolts from the tracked component. With these bolts removed, they stood in 3 different directions, each holding a dismantling tool, and forcefully knocked and pried at the component. In the blink of an eye, with a series of clanging sounds, the entire tracked component shattered into pieces, scattered all over the ground. It's taken apart. We finally took it apart. Principal Fang jumped and stomped on the spot excitedly, like a little boy, his white beard trembling. It's really taken apart. The Weisstein and Song Shuming hugged each other tightly, tears welling up in their eyes with excitement. See that? Yang Hong noticed Su Yinru's pale face. It hasn't been long, and the parts have already been disassembled. I really doubt whether your technology is even useful. Having witnessed a parts production process firsthand, Su Yinru once again expressed her skepticism about the anti-disassembly technology. Really? Yang Hong blinked, puzzled. It's just disassembly, what's there to be so excited about? They'll have to reassemble it later. Anti-disassembly technology, disassembly is just the beginning. Before reassembly, it's nothing. To put it bluntly, it's nothing. Seeing that Principal Fang and the other 2 were still excitedly lost in their own world, Yang Hong took a few steps forward and coughed. Have you forgotten something, huh? Song Shuming was the first to react, looking at Yang Hong respectfully. Big boss, having studied the track parts all night, Song Shuming was incredibly impressed with Yang Hong. This kind of design technology, wherever it was used, could easily win over a large number of parts designers, including himself. Well, he has to admit, this kind of technology and this kind of creativity are simply amazing. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 143 Anti-Disassembly Test, Part 5. Hey kid, when did you get here? Principal Fang said, indicating that he had only just noticed Yang Hong. The Weisstein also looked over. Yang Hong curled his lip. Didn't you guys take it apart? Now take a look at these disassembled parts, see if there's anything we can study. Song Shuming was completely baffled, not knowing what the big boss in front of him was up to, so he could only blink and stare. Although the parts were scattered all over the floor, what the hell was there to study? These parts were all standardized parts, square where they were supposed to be square, round where they were supposed to be round. Even if you studied them carefully and thoroughly, apart from their shape and size, you really couldn't study anything else. Once it's taken apart and studied, naturally you need to put it back together. Yang Hong blinked. Have you forgotten that in disassembly technology, disassembly is only the first step, installation is the key? Oh, Principal Fang seemed to get excited. You kid, do you really think we can't install it back together? Principal Fang had already studied the 5 anti-disassembly technologies thoroughly. Not to mention disassembly, installation was a piece of cake. If it weren't for the Weisstein mentioning that the 3 sets of parts in front of him all used standardized components, which piqued his interest, he wouldn't have bothered coming over. Come on, let's put them back together right now and show this kid our skills. Principal Fang pulled Song Shuming and the other man along, and began tidying up the scattered parts. Yang Hong, do you think they can put them back together? Su Yinru frowned. Yang Hong grunted but didn't answer. The first time, the newly assembled parts, before even the tracks could be reassembled, fell apart again. Principal Fang's face instantly turned red, like a familiar boiled shrimp. The second time, the tracks were finally reassembled, and a look of pride appeared on Principal Fang's face, but unexpectedly, when he picked up a bolt, he was dumbfounded. Because there was nowhere to install it. No, this time something must have gone wrong. Principal Fang took the lead and disassembled the parts again. The third time, this time it seemed to go smoothly, and the 3 of them barely managed to restore the track parts. With the experience from last time, Principal Fang and the others were very careful, fearing that they might make a mistake at any step, troubleshooting step by step. Alright, 3 bolts left, Principal Fang said with a hint of pride. Yang Hong, they really put it back in place. Su Yinru's expression turned grim. She had long suspected the anti-disassembly technology. Seeing it disassembled in just over a day and then reassembled in less than half a day, she had already planned to have Yang Hong relearn the techniques. Add to that the parts production process, which was like playing Tetris, completely unreliable. If those parts manufacturers had learned the anti-disassembly technology at Taeyang College, and if they couldn't keep up with the times and develop newer anti-disassembly technologies, wouldn't they follow in the footsteps of those previous parts manufacturers? Bankruptcy? Just thinking about it made Su Yinru want to groan. Yang Hong remained silent, still humming. 1, 2, 3. Principal Feng carefully placed the 3 bolts back in their positions, then clapped his hands. Mission accomplished, really? Yang Hong asked, still humming. HMPH, Principal Feng snorted coldly, his white beard twitching. Although the parts have been standardized, what's the difference from before? Just memorize the disassembly steps and process, and familiarize yourself with the anti-disassembly techniques, and the whole process will be a piece of cake. Besides, who is Principal Feng? He's the Mecha authority at Taeyang Academy. An expert. A top Mecha researcher. A mere disassembly task? Alright, you guys pack up, Principal Feng said smugly. But, the Weisstein and Song Shuming had barely removed their hands from the parts, and before they could even pull away the tools and the small crane, the track parts shattered into pieces again with a crash, turning into a pile of parts on the ground. Fortunately, the two reacted quickly, otherwise they would have been crushed by the large, heavy parts, and would have needed considerable rest, if not crippled. What happened? Principal Feng's smile froze, his eyes widening in disbelief. Principal Feng had thoroughly studied the 5 anti-disassembly techniques Yang Hong had given him. The 2 simplest sets of techniques are one way, with just the technical drawings and understanding of the principles, along with certain methods, disassembly and assembly can be easily performed. The third set, while technically more advanced, only involves 3 variations of the techniques, making it relatively simple. The last 2 sets, however, are more complex in both technology and methods, especially the 5th set of anti-disassembly techniques, which boasts nearly 10 methods. If these methods are differentiated based on component technology, they can result in no fewer than 30 variations. This was the flexible learning method initially emphasized to students. Mastering one variation could lead to a new category, which, upon further refinement, could become a primary anti-disassembly measure for a component manufacturer. Despite this, Principal Feng meticulously mastered them all. This was his primary means of charging component manufacturers in the future. If he couldn't understand them himself, he wouldn't be able to answer students' questions, giving them a legitimate reason to request refunds. Principal Feng absolutely wouldn't allow refund requests to arise after finally collecting payment. However, the track parts in front of Nima clearly used the relatively weaker 4th technology, but why couldn't they be reinstalled? Yang Hong tilted his head back, picked his nose, and continued humming without replying. Damn it, he just took it apart and was already bragging like crazy. He needs to be taught a lesson. Yang Hong, are you playing me? Have you secretly developed another new technology? Principal Feng's face darkened. The two had already agreed to use their 5 existing technologies as the core, then promote the anti-disassembly technology to attract more parts manufacturers. Their ultimate goal was to secretly split the profits. But unexpectedly, Nima had just finished their agreement when Yang Hong designed a new anti-disassembly technology and used it on his own company. Wasn't this a blatant trap? Principal Feng's face turned as black as charcoal. I haven't developed any new anti-disassembly technology, Yang Hong said, spreading his hands. Then how could I not reinstall it? Principal Feng was furious. Take a close look at the component design drawings. What anti-disassembly technologies are used? Yang Hong gestured towards the electronic notebook. Principal Feng snorted coldly, his gaze returning to the design drawings on the electronic notebook. Huh? Isn't this clearly the 4th type of anti-disassembly technology? Principal Feng's expression froze, and his lips twitched. Chapter 144 Anti-Disassembly Test, Part 6. This is impossible. Principal Feng was absolutely certain he had mastered the 4th anti-disassembly technique. The 4th anti-disassembly technique only had 3 technical variations, but 5 methods, resulting in 15 variations when combined. Although he had only installed it 3 times, he was certain he had selected the most correct method. So why couldn't he reinstall the tracked component in front of him? Wait. Something's not right. Suddenly, Principal Feng's eyes narrowed. The design seemed to be the 4th anti-disassembly technique, but it also contained elements of the 1st. No, it's not like that. Principal Feng tried to solve it using the methods of the 1st anti-disassembly technique, and the result was predictable. The Weisstein and Song Shuming also gathered around, the 3 of them forming a small group. Seeing Principal Fang glaring at her, Su Yinru became curious and leaned closer to Yang Hong. What's going on? HMPH, Yang Hong snorted, glancing at her. Don't you also think the anti-disassembly technology is unreliable? Why are you asking me, Yang Hong? Su Yinru was furious, but before she could finish speaking, her tone softened immediately, and she blinked. Yang Hong, I'm also a boss, your partner, can't you tell me? Yang Hong curled his lip. If he really considered him a partner, he'd have to split the money in his pocket first. Damn, he was desperate for money right now. He even had to ask the royal court for a salary, and he hadn't even received it yet. Yang Hong's gaze fell on Su Yinru's electronic bracelet. Just as the little girl was about to explode, Principal Fang appeared at the right time, looking pitiful. Kid, no, it's Boss Yang, what's going on? Haven't you figured it out yet? Yang Hong asked knowingly. No, there are countless technical things to it, but the truth is often just around the corner, and I just haven't found that corner yet, Principal Fang said with a forced smile. The truth is around the corner? Yang Hong laughed. What corner? The truth is right here with him. Kid, don't forget you're taking a 10% cut. If you don't tell me the truth, don't blame me for not paying you later. Principal Fang leaned closer and whispered. Fine, he wouldn't pay then. The little girl had all the financial power, he hadn't seen a single penny. What good was money if he'd never even seen what it looked like? Yang Hong rolled his eyes in annoyance. Let me tell you, kid, now not only are the courses divided into beginner, intermediate, and advanced levels, but I'll also charge extra for extra courses. How much? Yang Hong asked curiously. Since we only have 5 sets of technology right now, the price is tentatively set at the same as the advanced course. Principal Fang got excited about the course details. Let me tell you, if you provide more advanced anti-disassembly technology in the future, this price will skyrocket. PFFT. Yang Hong almost spat in his face. Extra courses at the same price as advanced courses, and tentatively at that? And the price will keep rising? Damn, how much was the advanced course priced again? 1 billion. Holy crap. 1 billion? Yang Hong was stunned. Old man, do people really pay for extra courses? Yang Hong doubted the white-bearded old man was talking nonsense. Yes, definitely, and 2 parts manufacturers have already paid, Principal Fang boasted. Are there really some fools with too much money? Now, Yang Hong couldn't sit still any longer. Old man, did I get a share of the extra courses? You doubt me. Principal Fang was displeased, his eyes widening, his white beard trembling. Since I promised 10%, I will definitely deliver it to you. However, if you still try to hide it, don't blame me for hiding it when it comes to splitting the money, okay? Yang Hong compromised. Although he didn't get the money, it was still in his account, and he would ultimately benefit. The money might not be in his hands, but it would definitely be used to build the company. On this issue, Yang Hong was clear. Tell me, is this a new technology? Principal Fang stroked his white beard and asked. It's both, and it's not. Yang Hong remembered what the devouring worm had said. Principal Fang's eyes widened again. The combination of technologies, 1 + 1 is greater than 2. Yang Hong seemed to understand but not quite. What? Principal Fang was shocked and shouted. The two had been whispering to each other, so outsiders couldn't hear clearly, but now that Principal Fang was glaring and shouting, everyone's eyes were on him. Realizing something was amiss, he glanced around and quickly lowered his voice. Yang Hong, you didn't actually combine 2 technologies together, did you? Principal Fang was no ordinary person. Before becoming principal, he was the dean of the parts design department, and even the full dean. His technical skills and abilities far surpassed those of Song Shuming's mentor, the vice dean. He immediately noticed the anomaly on the parts drawing. Though he hadn't considered this possibility before, he had a vague suspicion. Now, with Yang Hong speaking, he immediately remembered this. That's right, it's a combination of 2 technologies. This time, it was Yang Hong's turn to show off. He tilted his head back and picked his nose. Didn't I tell you to let the students use their creativity and apply what they've learned? Principal Fang nodded. If the students understood how to combine technologies, they would quickly develop their own anti-disassembly techniques, which wouldn't be a bad thing for parts manufacturers. The facts were clear, and Yang Hong had also acknowledged it. The track parts did indeed use this new anti-disassembly technology. Yang Hong racked his brains, picking out each word a devouring worm had said. He pointed to the track component. This component uses a combination of the 1st and 4th technologies. The so-called secondary encapsulation. Secondary encapsulation, you understand? Yang Hong asked smugly. Yes, I understand, Principal Feng nodded. Secondary encapsulation means that after setting up the first layer of anti-disassembly technology, a second layer of anti-disassembly technology is applied. Right, you really understand. Yang Hong's lips twitched, his whole body drooping. Damn it, you understand, but can't you pretend you don't? He'd finally managed to pick out the most incomprehensible part from that dead worm. Couldn't he at least give him a chance to explain? Yang Hong looked at Principal Feng, a hint of displeasure in his eyes. However, combining two technologies is quite difficult. How exactly did you combine them? For Principal Feng, pursuing the truth was paramount, and this secondary encapsulation technology was exactly what he was after. Money. These technologies could be exchanged for real money. He wished he could learn them all at once to further increase his investment in additional courses. $1 billion is nothing. Principal Feng's ultimate demand is endless. Of course, he said he would be very happy if such a parts manufacturer actually existed. Chapter 145. All of it was a waste of effort. How to combine them? This really stumped Yang Hong. His words were all picked out from the dead bugs, piecemeal, just to fit together whatever came to mind. As for understanding? Get lost. Yang Hong had no idea what he was talking about. Helpless, Yang Hong could only grunt a few times, then pretend to be very profound, before quickly changing the subject. Old man, you've taken all the parts apart, can you put them back together now? No, Principal Feng shook his head. If they could really be put back together, why would he bother asking Yang Hong? That settled it. Yang Hong beckoned to Su Yinru. Can they be disassembled or reassembled? Do you think the anti-disassembly technology of these parts is up to par? Well, I guess so. Su Yinru looked at the parts scattered on the ground, then at the dejected Principal Feng and the other two. It seemed that these parts, thanks to this technology, could fetch a good price. Thinking of this, she suddenly perked up again. Alright, Su Yinru waved her hand. That's it for this test. Yang Hong, you should put those parts back together. I can't help it either. Yang Hong shrugged. Did they really think he was some kind of genius? Even if he hadn't disassembled it, he wouldn't understand anything about it. Besides, this was a product that had been repackaged. It wasn't so easy to handle. What? Su Yinru was dumbfounded. You can't put it back together either. Stop. Everyone stop. Su Yinru panicked and quickly stopped all operations on the production line. Su Yinru was almost red-eyed with anxiety. The parts they were producing this time were part standardization projects in cooperation with the Royal Court of the Imperial Guard. The requirement was that the parts be easy to replace. If they couldn't even put them back together after disassembly, what use were they? This was completely unrealistic. As soon as the little girl's question was raised, Yang Hong was stunned. Principal Feng was dumbfounded. Song Shuming was stunned. The Vice-Dean's eyes twitched violently. That's right, being able to disassemble but not reassemble is a good thing for parts manufacturers, but when it comes to standardizing parts, they're just wasting their time. Unless they replace the entire set of parts, wouldn't that increase the pressure on the mecha pilots? Damaging a small part and having to spend a fortune to buy a brand new one is just pointless. Yang Hong, you need to redesign a new blueprint, or this isn't over. Su Yinru turned and left angrily. What does this have to do with me? Yang Hong blinked. The parts had been in production for several days, and not only had they wasted their time, but the parts they produced were completely useless. They were essentially wasting resources. Wasting resources and time. Su Yinru wasn't just angry, she was almost crying inside. Wasting resources, wasting money. That's the key point. Did they think money grew on trees? However, before she even left the workshop, she came running back, her face beaming with a bright, radiant smile. Su Yinru went straight to Principal Feng and the others. Principal Feng, Vice-Dean, have you been busy these past few days? I guess a little busy. Principal Feng was puzzled. The Vice-Dean looked equally bewildered. Song Shuming sensed something was wrong and was about to speak when he was glared at and could only lower his head sheepishly. These past few days, Yang Hong will probably be redesigning a new anti-disassembly technology. Aren't you planning to watch from the sidelines? Su Yinru asked with a smile. Her smile was cunning, making her look more and more like a little fox. But Principal Feng and the Vice-Dean immediately perked up, shaking their heads and waving their hands. Not busy at all these past few days. They both had the identity and ability of parts designers, and of course they were willing to observe the new anti-disassembly technology. This was a good way to gain experience, and if they really learned something good, they could use it in their anti-disassembly technology tutorials. Since you're both not busy, could you do me a small favor? Suyinru asked excitedly. No problem, whatever it is, we'll take care of it. Principal Fang patted his chest to assure them, while also pulling on the Vice Dean. Vice Dean, isn't that right? That's right, as long as it's not a big problem. There really isn't. They were all prepared to go all out for the new anti-disassembly technology. Principal Fang, Vice Dean, I promise this is really just a small favor, a very, very small favor. Absolutely no problem. Suyinru patted her flat chest in return. She pointed to the parts near the production line. Principal Fang, Vice Dean, now that you've figured out how to disassemble these parts, could you help us disassemble the rest of the parts? As she spoke, Suyinru blinked, staring intently at Principal Fang and Vice Dean. What? Principal Fang was dumbfounded. The Vice Dean was equally dumbfounded. Song Shuming sighed inwardly. He knew this small boss had ulterior motives. Moreover, his two bosses seemed to be quite similar. One was utterly unreliable, while the other, in his current position, could come up with anything to save money. We seem to have some. Principal Fang's face flushed, struggling to get the words out. Principal Fang, didn't you just say you weren't busy these past few days? Suyinru quickly blinked, cutting him off. And don't you have a group of anti-disassembly instructors under you? They have absolutely no practical skills. Can they really be instructors in anti-disassembly technology? Huh? Principal Fang paused, then his mind cleared. Right, they'd spent a lot of money hiring those instructors, and they were all limited to theoretical knowledge. How could they function without any practical skills? Besides, they'd invested a lot in these people. What if they were stumped by a student's question? Alright, we'll take care of it. Principal Fang nodded vigorously. An internship opportunity was right in front of him. How could he let it slip away? If the professor was stumped, he'd definitely be asked for a refund. That wouldn't be good. However, after glancing at the components, Principal Fang's eyes twitched suddenly. Hey little girl, there are 3 sets of components. Just the track type alone took the 3 of us almost a whole day to figure out. The other 2, Suyinru pulled Yang Hong over. Yang Hong, the remaining 2 are yours. Disassembling the components could save a lot of money, and ultimately, this whole situation was Yang Hong's fault. Principal Fang, all these components use the same design method. Don't you plan to consider secondary encapsulation? Actually, Yang Hong hadn't wanted these 2 around from the beginning. Damn it, this was Deadbug's business, if someone was watching. And Deadbug didn't show up. Who would design it? Chapter 146 Hongbao comes to the door. Faced with a secondary packaging technology, Principal Fang chose to compromise. New technologies are generally best understood through drawings. If there are no drawings, look at the actual product. As for the design process, even if they were present, they couldn't offer any help. It was better to directly explore this secondary packaging technology. If they could truly master it, even with only the 5 technologies they possessed, combining 2 of them could definitely create several more advanced technologies. Then, the investment costs for component manufacturers wanting to learn would be entirely up to them. Moreover, if they had these technologies on hand, a fee of 1 billion would be far too low, not worthy of the technology at all. Thinking of this, Principal Fang perked up, walking with light steps, as if on clouds. He waved his hand. Let's go, let's explore the other 2 components. The Vice Dean and Song Shuming were immediately pulled along. With this matter resolved, Yang Hong quickly left the component processing plant, fearing that the old man with the white beard might shamelessly pester him again, and that would be truly difficult to summon back. Just as he stepped out of the component processing plant, a junior employee stopped Yang Hong. Boss, someone's here for a job interview, the employee said respectfully. Yang Hong was puzzled. Wasn't this usually handled by the young woman? Why was he being approached? However, when he looked up and saw Suyinru in the distance, he roughly guessed the reason. The 2 walked one after the other. Suyinru was fuming because she had wasted a lot of resources, and no one dared to stop her. Yang Hong, on the other hand, was always carefree, and being the big boss, the employee naturally came to him. It seemed the big boss was indeed different, Yang Hong thought to himself, secretly pleased. Actually, the truth was not so simple. This time, the applicant was quite special, and the employee was afraid that Boss Su wouldn't handle it well, so he approached Yang Hong. Regardless of the truth, a happy Yang Hong followed the employee all the way to the parts center. Although the parts center had been expanded, they already had a lot of employees and had never planned to hire anyone. But things are different now. A parts processing plant and a metal processing plant have suddenly appeared, and they still need to recruit new employees from time to time. So, the meeting room in the parts center has temporarily become a recruitment room. As soon as Yang Hong entered the meeting room, he saw a familiar big red nose, grinning at him. Big red nose? That feels so familiar? Yang Hong blinked. The person was none other than Hong Bao from the Wild Wolf Gang. He was on a heavy mission and had come directly to the door. Upon seeing Yang Hong, he immediately stepped forward, grabbed Yang Hong's hand, and burst into laughter. Ha ha, Boss Yang, I didn't expect Hong Bao to be applying for a job too. Hong Bao? Who is that? Yang Hong continued to blink. To be honest, Yang Hong only recognized a few people, and among them, there were some whose names he couldn't even recall. Like the white-bearded old man, the beautiful Deng, the girl with big circles under her eyes, Lao Gu, Lao Song, and so on. As for the people he could name, only the little girl and Uncle Zhaba were familiar. After all, his ultimate goal was to live a life of leisure, eating, drinking, and doing whatever he wanted. Why waste time remembering names? He was just wasting his time. Why bother with all that? This big red-nosed guy in front of him felt very familiar to Yang Hong, but he genuinely didn't remember him and didn't intend to. Hong Bao. There was only one red-nosed guy. Yang Hong pursed his lips. Hong Bao was embarrassed, pulling his hand back to touch his big red nose, his trademark, something even the Wild Wolf boss praised endlessly. Why didn't Yang Hong remember him? Was it because of something from the past, deliberately embarrassing him so he'd slink away? No, absolutely not. This mission was arduous. He was a future high-ranking member of the Wild Wolf Gang, carefully selected by the Wild Wolf boss and brought out of prison. How could he be stumped by such a trivial matter? Hong Bao straightened his expression. Yang Hong, no, you're Boss Yang, I used to bully you because I was part of the Wild Wolf Gang. He choked back tears, squeezing them out. We had orders from above, and as underlings, we had no choice but to obey. Now we're down on our luck, expelled from the Wild Wolf Gang, so we have no choice but to come and rely on you, the Wild Wolf Gang? Yang Hong's eyes lit up. He'd been having a run of bad luck lately, both financially and in terms of fortune, and had been hoping for the Wild Wolf Gang to reappear. They were his benefactors, they'd give him money when he was broke, resources when he was short, and even jokes when he was bored. Damn it, all the Wild Wolf Gang members had been hiding like turtles, not even a glimpse of them. Now, finally, one of them had appeared, and Yang Hong felt a surge of excitement. Wait? Yang Hong blinked a few times. What did you just say? Expelled from the Wild Wolf Gang. Yes, expelled from the Wild Wolf Gang. Hong Bao, fearing Yang Hong wouldn't believe him, spoke with absolute certainty. I swear to God, I really was expelled from the Wild Wolf Gang. That's why I came to rely on you. Yang Hong's eyes twitched. Damn it, he was expelled from the Wild Wolf Gang. What's he doing here? He needed members of the Wild Wolf Gang, not someone expelled. Besides, this big red-nosed guy had said he used to bully him. He absolutely didn't want that kind of person. Yang Hong waved his hand impatiently. Alright, get lost, we're not hiring. Not hiring? Hong Bao was stunned. He asked dumbly, Boss Yang, why aren't you hiring? I only want members of the Wild Wolf Gang. You've been expelled, what do I need you for? Yang Hong continued waving his hand. What? Only members of the Wild Wolf Gang? Hong Bao was dumbfounded. To successfully infiltrate the Wild Wolf enterprise as an undercover agent, he, along with the Wild Wolf boss and Tong Xianjun, discussed and researched extensively before finally devising this self-inflicted injury plan. They even identified nearly 10 possible scenarios for failure, developing at least 2 solutions for each. However, the current predicament was definitely not among these possibilities. Why wouldn't Yang Hong accept those expelled from the Wild Wolf Gang? And why was it so open that only those with Wild Wolf Gang connections would be recruited? Why? Hong Bao was completely baffled, and could only scratch his red nose. Fortunately, Hong Bao was incredibly thick-skinned. He grabbed Yang Hong's hand. Yang Hong, brother Yang, Boss Yang, although we were enemies before, we both came from the bottom of the garbage dump. Can't you give me a chance to redeem myself? I really need this job. I have elderly parents and young children to support, all waiting for me to earn money to pay for their livelihood. Did this guy really have both elderly parents and young children? Yang Hong scratched his head. Why did the image of this guy being all alone suddenly appear in his memory? Chapter 147 Redesign. In the end, Yang Hong accepted Hong Bao. A shameless person like that was a real talent. Besides, although Yang Hong was usually unyielding, he would soften if someone pestered him too much. And right now, Wild Wolf Enterprise wasn't short of money, so one more person wouldn't matter. Of course, he himself was still short of money, since most of the big money was in the hands of the little girl. As for how to arrange Hong Bao's affairs, that was up to the little girl. With this matter settled, Yang Hong planned to go back and lie down for a while, to take a nap. Lying in bed is so comfortable, Yang Hong thought contentedly. However, before he could even close his eyes, there was a knock at the door. Yang Hong's expression changed instantly, and he quickly grabbed a blanket, covering his head and ears. Boss, it's Hong Bao, damn it. Yang Hong's eyes twitched. What was this big red-nosed guy doing here? He thought it was the little girl again. What is it? Yang Hong asked irritably. Boss, would you like some tea? Yang Hong's face immediately darkened. Damn it, he wanted to sleep. Why would he want tea? No, go do what you need to do, don't bother me. Yang Hong turned over and lay on his side. He stretched, pulled the covers over himself, and felt comfortable. Yang Hong was very satisfied. However, this state of satisfaction was quickly shattered by a knock at the door. Who is it now? Yang Hong sat up abruptly, his face terrifyingly grim. Boss, it's Hong Bao, damn it. Yang Hong was furious. What is it now? Hong Bao didn't seem to sense the anger in Yang Hong's tone at all. Boss, I'd like to refill your tea. PFFT. Yang Hong almost spat out a tea he'd been drinking the night before. Damn it, he'd already said he didn't want tea. Why was he asking for more? Yang Hong got out of bed angrily and slammed the door open. Outside, Hong Bao held a tea tray in one hand and a hot towel in the other. Boss, would you like some tea, or would you like to wash your face first? Hong Bao was incredibly attentive. Now Yang Hong couldn't even muster his anger. At least he had a diligent employee who was actually quite considerate of him. Even his anger vanished instantly. No, thank you, Yang Hong sighed. Seeing Hong Bao's enthusiasm, he figured he wouldn't be able to lie down any longer, so Yang Hong reluctantly left the small room. Boss, where are you going? Hong Bao quickly followed. Don't follow me, I need to use the restroom. With that, Yang Hong hurriedly fled. Of course, he really did need to use the restroom. Outside the restroom. Boss, it's me, Hong Bao, what is it? Yang Hong's lips twitched, he was almost at his breaking point. Damn it, he was using the restroom. Why was this big red-nosed guy following him? Was he bored? Boss, I have some toilet paper here. If you need any, just say the word. Hong Bao stood outside the restroom, holding a roll of toilet paper in one hand. Damn it, there's toilet paper in the restroom. Besides, if there really isn't, wouldn't he just go get some first and come back? Boss, stop yelling, okay? Yang Hong was completely exasperated. No, he'd had enough. He was definitely going to get a little girl to give Big Red Nose a job later, or he'd really go crazy. Wild Wolf Enterprise was only so big, with a parts center, a metal processing plant, and another parts processing plant, just 3 places. In less than half a day, Hong Bao's story had spread throughout the entire Wild Wolf Enterprise. Suyinaru had also heard about it. She was usually petty, but with Uncle Zaba's reminder, she knew Hong Bao's purpose perfectly well. She respected this kind of person without hesitation. However, seeing that this person could actually keep Yang Hong on his toes, she immediately changed her mind and didn't even bother to give Hong Bao a job. Wild Wolf Enterprise already had so many employees, one more or one less wouldn't make a difference in salary. Besides, Yang Hong needed someone like this to keep him on his toes. Now, Yang Hong was in a terrible predicament. He'd been burdened with an extra little entanglement for his funeral, and his shamelessness was something even Liang Weihong would envy. Well, there was no other way. Yang Hong had to go into the workshop alone to redesign. Hong Bao, with his level, naturally couldn't enter this workshop, but that didn't matter. He could wait at the door, as long as he could monitor Yang Hong and secretly send a message back to the Wild Wolf gang, he'd consider his mission complete. Inside the workshop, the devouring worm appeared in Yang Hong's palm. You damn worm, all the blueprints need to be redesigned. Yang Hong tossed out his electronic notebook. Understood. The devouring worm, having been inside Yang Hong's body, naturally understood the situation. It needs to be easy to replace and disassemble, that's fundamental. Although Yang Hong was amateurish, he still had a knack for making demands. The devouring worm rolled its eyes. Actually, easy replacement and disassembly were the trends in mecha parts. Most other planets in the universe adopted this type of design. It was just that on this planet, the devouring worm's thinking had been assimilated, leading it down a dead end. Normally, a large component is broken down into many smaller parts, each reinforced with anti-disassembly technology. Large components have their own replacement methods, and small components have theirs as well. Among components, the small parts are paramount. All anti-disassembly technologies revolve around them. Small components, as long as the price is reasonable, can be replaced entirely without easily provoking the mech pilot's resentment. Larger components can be ignored. With a clear plan and ideas, the rest became much simpler. First, the devourer broke down the entire component into multiple parts, then categorized them by size, and redesigned them accordingly. The final step was to integrate the various parts. At this point, even without further anti-disassembly measures, it didn't matter, as the core technology lay in the smaller components. This redesign was extremely quick. In less than a night, all three component designs were redesigned. Holding his notebook, Yang Hong once again left the workshop. Huh? Why is this guy still here? Seeing the big red-nosed guy waiting nearby, Yang Hong's joy instantly soared to the heavens. Because Yang Hong had been in the studio for an extremely long time, Hong Bao, though still standing, was already snoring soundly. Although somewhat touched, Yang Hong decided not to wake him. He was practically going crazy from being stared at. Waking the big red-nosed guy would definitely be asking for trouble. Yang Hong tiptoed away from Hong Bao. But, before he'd taken more than a few steps, Hong Bao suddenly opened his eyes and immediately saw Yang Hong. Boss, you're out. Hong Bao exclaimed excitedly, all his sleepiness vanishing. Damn. Yang Hong froze, his eyes practically brimming with tears. Chapter 148 Special Recruitment of District 32 Academy. Parts Center, Office. As an unofficial staff member designated by Su Yinru, Hong Bao wasn't allowed in this place, which improved Yang Hong's mood. Are you sure this design is really usable? Su Yinru looked at the three design drawings on the electronic notebook with suspicion. Don't you trust me? Yang Hong was dissatisfied. He trusted her too much, and now it's a mess, a waste of time and money. Su Yinru glared at him angrily. Luckily, the little girl was smart and kept Principal Feng and the others behind. So, she quickly had her staff call them over. Principal Feng, seeing the three appear, Su Yinru immediately put on a smile. Why isn't that smile on me? Yang Hong's eyes twitched. What is it now? Principal Feng's expression was clearly not good. Although a group of instructors had been arranged to disassemble the parts and learn practical skills, how many instructors were there, and how many parts were there? There were over 100 parts, divided into three categories. Damn it, the three of them painstakingly researched the disassembly method and then taught it one-on-one, but in the end, they still had to do it themselves because there wasn't enough manpower. They were working so hard on the disassembly work, and they didn't even get paid. That was what Principal Feng was most dissatisfied with. Once, twice, he'd already been tricked twice by this little girl, no wonder he wasn't in a good mood. Principal Feng, could you help me take a look at these design drawings? Su Yinru asked sweetly. Oh, this kid's already designed one. Principal Feng's expression finally improved. He glanced at Yang Hong, then strode forward and took the electronic notebook. This is, after just one glance at the redesigned drawings, Principal Feng's expression changed drastically. This idea is brilliant, Principal Feng praised without reservation. The Weistein and Song Shuming exchanged a glance and also hurried forward. Huh? This design method, the Weistein's eyes widened, his face filled with disbelief. Song Shuming's eyes lit up, and he couldn't help but look up at the unreliable boss with a complicated expression. Principal Feng, how are these design drawings? Are they usable? Su Yinru asked with a smile, leaning closer. They're usable, they're usable. These are definitely design drawings specifically created for the standardization of parts. Principal Feng nodded vigorously. Kid, how did you come up with this idea? Principal Feng looked at Yang Hong with admiration. The design drawings were almost entirely redesigned, and only one night had passed. Putting aside the design idea itself, the speed alone was astonishing. HMPH Yang Hong raised his head and snorted, "Who am I? A mere little problem, how could it stump me, Master Hong?" Su Yinru couldn't stand Yang Hong's arrogance, but as long as the drawings were usable, that was fine. But Principal Fang didn't care. After all, geniuses have another side, and the more arrogant a person is, the more capable they generally are. Of course, there are also some incompetent guys who act like big shots. However, Yang Hong was clearly the latter. All of this was thanks to the devouring worm. He was just reaping the benefits. Principal Fang nodded. Suddenly, he remembered something else. "Kid, there's something I forgot to tell you." "What is it?" Yang Hong blinked. "Next month, you have to leave here," Principal Fang said. "What?" Su Yinru was stunned. Song Shuming was also clearly a little confused. Yang Hong was even more puzzled. "Why do I have to leave?" Su Yinru's eyes widened. Yang Hong was the top leader here, and he had single-handedly put together all the design drawings and metal research. If he really left, wouldn't it mean the place had reached its end? This was absolutely unacceptable, and she didn't intend to let Yang Hong leave. "I've already submitted your information to District 32 Academy. You need to go there to report when school starts next month," Principal Fang said with a smile, stroking his white beard. "When you get to District 32 Academy, don't let down the reputation of our Heian Academy." "Huh? District 32 Academy?" Yang Hong immediately perked up. Su Yinru's heart finally settled down. It was just reporting to the academy. She had thought Yang Hong was going to leave for good. That old man is really something, making everyone worry for so long. The little girl's gaze turned unfriendly as she looked at Principal Fang. At the 32nd District Academy, the devouring worm within Yang Hong's body also became excited. They'd heard that the library there possessed the largest collection of books in the entire 32nd District, and it was also connected to the libraries of other regional academies. In other words, once you got there, it was equivalent to having access to all the publicly available information on the entire planet. This time, our Heian Academy submitted 10 special admission applications, but only one was approved. "So they gave us another chance, and I just submitted your application as well," Principal Fang said, stroking his white beard. "Is that really true?" The Vice Dean curled his lip. As the Vice Dean of the Academy's design department, he naturally knew the reason behind it. Actually, out of 10 special admission applications, only one was approved. Principal Fang was furious, believing that the 32nd District was deliberately causing trouble. To prevent Principal Fang from causing a scene, they gave him another spot, and this spot was almost a guaranteed approval. And very fortunately, Principal Fang gave this spot to Yang Hong almost without hesitation. At the time, many people voiced their opposition, thinking that Yang Hong had just gotten lucky and received special treatment from Principal Fang. But when Principal Fang presented the anti-disassembly technology solution for components developed in collaboration with Yang Hong, those people immediately shut their mouths. Putting aside the huge sum of money behind this collaboration, the anti-disassembly technology alone was enough to impress all the instructors in the component design department. If this kid were trained by District 32 Academy, he would definitely be a prodigy in component design. The Vice Dean was also completely impressed by Yang Hong's technology. "Old man, how long until the reporting time?" Su Yinru suddenly asked. Because of her dissatisfaction with Principal Fang, she didn't even address him by his name. Principal Fang didn't pay attention to these details. He counted on his fingers for a moment. "There are 27 days left. You should prepare everything by then. When the time comes, just go directly to District 32 Academy. By the way, I will have someone send the notification certificate in advance. You just need to take the notification certificate and someone will receive you." 27 days? Su Yinru quickly started counting on her fingers. Also counting the days. After a long pause, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. "Thankfully, we still have enough time." "What's wrong? Is there something urgent?" Principal Fang asked in surprise. What else could it be? It was naturally the cooperation with the royal court. The young girl had to use the remaining 27 days to resolve the cooperation between the two parties in one go. Otherwise, if Yang Honggyun was at the 32nd District Academy, it would be a huge problem. Chapter 149 She Makes an Scheme. Due to the tight schedule, Su Yinru decided to ramp up production, and Principal Fang and his group were also sent to the workshop to disassemble the completed parts. Yang Hong also chose to go to the workshop to disassemble the parts. He had no choice. He was being watched by Hong Bao, and wherever he went, Hong Bao followed. Even sleeping in or going to the toilet became unbearable. Yang Hong was furious and wanted to fire this red-nosed guy on the spot, but Su Yinru quickly stopped him. The girl's words were confident and self-righteous. "It's just hiring one more person, we don't need the money." Yang Hong was dumbfounded. Was this how a money grubber should talk? It was obvious that Hong Bao was hired to monitor him. Yang Hong regretted it. He wanted to slap himself repeatedly. He would have absolutely refused to hire that red-nosed guy back then. Now, he was green with envy. Achoo! After slapping himself twice, Hong Bao rubbed his big red nose. "Who's cursing me now?" He knew perfectly well that his thick skin had already made many people envious, but that was none of his business. His main task was to monitor Yang Hong. Besides, the small boss of the parts processing plant had also spoken up, asking him to keep a close eye on the big boss. Perfect for him. Currently, with no assigned duties and nothing to do, Hong Bao randomly found a spot in the workshop, watching Yang Hong from a distance. He held a tea tray in his left hand, a hot towel draped over his shoulder, and focused intently on monitoring Yang Hong. No, he was serving Yang Hong, and serving him very well at that. Even Boss Wild Wolf had said this was his unique ability, so Hong Bao naturally made the most of it. It has to be said, his thick skin almost made Liang Weihong kneel on the spot. There's really no comparison between people, especially when it comes to thick skin. Liang Weihong groaned, his position stolen by Hong Bao. Meanwhile, in Haiyang City, at Shianki Parts Factory. "Boss Shi, this is the anti-disassembly course we got from Haiyang Academy." Ling Shianki handed a document to the man in the black cloak. This man in the black cloak was none other than Shi Mingxin, the boss of Saber-Tooth Tiger, a fellow mecha manufacturer, and the opponent mentioned by the big boss of the royal court. Shi Mingxin took it, glanced at it, nodded, and then pulled out an electronic notebook. "Inside are the design drawings of your opponent this time. All 3 copies are in here." "Design drawings?" Ling Shianki's eyes lit up. "Are they complete design drawings?" The 2 bosses from Luli Parts Factory also looked at the electronic notebook. Shi Mingxin didn't respond, simply handing over the notebook. "Take a look first, and we can discuss any problems later." After handing over the notebook, he picked up a bottle of expensive liquor from the table, poured himself a glass, and gulped it down. Ever since feeling the drinks were being wasted, Ling Shianki had already put away his own bottle of fine wine. Although he still served wine, he only served ordinary high-end wines available on the market. Seeing Shi Mingxin still guzzling it down like a glutton, he couldn't help but feel secretly relieved. If he had really wasted any more, Shi Mingxin would have been furious. After Ling Shianki took the electronic notebook, Su Luo and Li Li also leaned closer to look. "It really is a complete design drawing." Su Luo was excited. Li Li's eyes also shone brightly. "That's right, this uses the 4th type of anti-disassembly technology." Although Ling Shianki was a parts supplier, he also had a certain eye for parts design. "These data," Su Luo, whose gaze was clearly focused on the data, gasped. Each piece of data displayed on the electronic notebook was enough to elevate all similar parts in Haiyang City to a higher level. How exactly did the young boss design a part with such performance? Lily's face darkened. It's conceivable that the parts produced using these design blueprints could quickly dominate the parts market in Haiyang City, rapidly gaining recognition and becoming a leading parts manufacturer in the region. Although Wild Wolf Parts Manufacturer appeared out of nowhere, its strength was enough to attract the attention of the Star government. At that point, the Star government's support would naturally shift. And with the Star government's attention, any further attempts to take action would be met with reprimand. In other words, the parts manufacturers in Haiyang City would form a 4-way balance of power, something the 3 major parts manufacturers didn't want to see. However, they never dreamed that at this moment, Weihang Parts Manufacturer had already completely chosen its side and joined the newly formed Wild Wolf Parts Factory. With your manpower, how long would it take to design parts with similar performance? Suddenly, Shi Mingxin, having downed another glass of wine, asked. Ling Shianki and the other 2 were embarrassed, exchanging bewildered glances. They wouldn't even dare to imagine such performance data before obtaining the blueprints, let alone design it now. If compared to similar parts currently available in Haiyang City, their parts have a performance rating of 1, while the performance of these parts is almost 3. In other words, 3 times the performance. Of course, some of this data comes from the hardness of Wild Wolf Alloy No. 1. I've had someone test a performance of Wild Wolf Alloy number 1, and it's almost identical to the new alloy I acquired, Shimixon said, looking at the three men. If I give you this new alloy now, can you design similar parts in the shortest time? Design similar parts? Ling Xianqi shook his head. Suluo and Lili also shook their heads. Shimixon's expression clearly darkened. Alright, let's lower the standard and directly imitate it. Do you have the capability? Although embarrassed, the three men nodded. Currently, they have obtained 5 anti-disassembly technologies. With blueprints in technology, imitating them wouldn't be difficult. Very good, Shimixon's expression finally improved. Tell me, how long will it take you to produce it? The three pondered for a moment, and Suluo spoke first. If it's just 1 unit, as long as the materials are sufficient, it can be produced in 1 to 2 days. What about mass production? Shimixon asked with a serious face. If it's mass production, it depends on the production quantity. Generally, it can be put directly into production within a week. Very good, Shimixon was very satisfied. According to the information I have, the other party needs at least some more time to prepare before they can rush to produce it. You hurry up, let's produce a batch first, and then release it to the market before them. As long as they seize the market first, and sell similar parts, even if the other party knows the outcome, they can only watch helplessly as they make money. This is Shimixon's plan. Chapter 150, the market was taken over. The parts had all been disassembled long ago, and even Principal Feng and his entourage had left and returned to Heian College. Fortunately, Su Yinru was sensible and gave each of them a large red envelope, otherwise, this kind of thing would definitely not happen again. Principal Feng had long been resentful about working for nothing, and his expression improved after receiving the red envelopes. As for Yang Hong, the big boss, he had been having a headache lately. As soon as the disassembly was finished, he immediately went to the parts production line. That guy with a big red nose had nothing better to do than stare at him and flatter him. Although he knew there were signs of surveillance, Yang Hong couldn't resist the flattery. Hong Bao's flattery was simply divine, going all the way to the point of being obnoxious. Yang Hong was very frustrated, helpless, and disliked this person. He wanted to get rid of him, but Su Yinru turned a blind eye and was happy to see it happen. She even called it mutual supervision. Supervision my ass, Yang Hong almost shouted. But just as he opened his mouth, Hong Bao came running over, respectfully offering him a cup of tea. The tea was still warm, steaming. Immediately, Yang Hong had no choice but to shut his mouth. This flattery was so blatant, Yang Hong felt a pang of gratitude. Time flew by. That day. Parts Center, office. Little girl, this Hong Bao guy seems to be from the Wild Wolf Gang. Is what you're doing really okay? Zaba had just entered, found a seat, and asked. Hong Bao, that big red nose. Su Yinru put down her work and covered her mouth, laughing. Uncle Zaba, aren't all your people keeping an eye on him? Besides, you've been intercepting all the messages he sends out every day. Zaba chuckled. This guy is strange. He sends out a message every day, regardless of whether the other side receives it or not. He just sends it on time every day, and almost all of his messages are about everyday things. If I were his contact, I would definitely find him and slap him flat. He's really a failure as an undercover agent. Zaba shook his head, amused. Su Yinru laughed so hard her shoulders shook, her eyes turning into crescent moons. But, little girl, this guy has a big influence on Yang Hong. Aren't you afraid that all your efforts will be in vain? Zaba suddenly stopped laughing and straightened his expression. HMPH Su Yinru snorted, that Yang Hong guy just needs someone to put some pressure on him. Does he really think being a big boss is so easy? Anyway, with you guys keeping an eye on Hong Bao, I'm at ease. Alright, Zaba spread his hands and shrugged, wishing Yang Hong good luck. Just then, Su Yinru's electronic bracelet rang. Principal Feng? What does this old man want? Su Yinru looked at the caller ID and was puzzled. Principal Feng, you? Su Yinru had just answered the call and hadn't even said hello when the other end urgently shouted, little girl, why can't I reach Yang Hong? Yang Hong? Su Yinru blinked. It seemed that the guy had been bothering Hong Bao lately and had even turned off the communication on his electronic bracelet. Principal Feng, what's wrong? Principal Feng's urgency made Su Yinru suspicious. What is it? Something big has happened, and you haven't received any news? Su Yinru's heart skipped a beat, and she had a vague feeling that something was wrong. This morning, Xianqi and Luli two major component manufacturers, joined forces to launch 3 new components. Do you know what these 3 components are? 3 components? Could it be? Suyinaru's expression changed drastically. That's right, it's your 3 sets, and they've been tested by our academy. Not only is the design identical, but the performance is almost exactly the same. Thump. Suyinaru stood up. Principal Fang, are you really sure they were exactly the same as the components we produce? HMPH. Don't forget, we disassembled all 3 sets of components. We can identify them just by looking at them. They've only just started production here, and someone else has already produced them and put them on the market? Suyinaru's eyes widened, her anger flaring. And who leaked the component blueprints? Suyinaru gritted her teeth. Wait, all 3 sets of components have already been disassembled? Principal Fang, are those components the ones we rejected? Principal Fang was taken aback at first, then quickly replied, yes, that's right, it's the original 3, and they all use the same design. Hearing this, Suyinaru's heart eased slightly, but she was still bothered by the leaked design drawings. Shianki and Luli seem to have also obtained a new type of alloy, whose performance is almost on par with your Wild Wolf alloy number 1, and the components they made also achieved similar data. What? They also have a new alloy? There are countless people researching metals. Don't think that just because you're standing still, others will follow in your footsteps, Principal Fang said irritably. Principal Fang, I want to confirm again, are the components they've put on the market really the ones we rejected last time? That's right. Do you think I'm just an old man with nothing better to do? Okay, Principal Fang, thank you so much this time. After confirming again, Suyinaru was immediately relieved. HMPH, settle your affairs first. I'll keep an eye on the parts market here for you. Hanging up the call, Suyinaru's face was ashen. The parts have been leaked. Zaba's eyes flashed coldly. Although he still had a military background, Yang Hong still supported his hundreds of underlings. If Yang Hong's company really failed, those hundreds of underlings would lose their jobs. It seemed he had to spare some manpower. Lately, because his underlings had been sent to work in the workshop, few had gone out to gather information, and Zaba's intelligence had fallen far behind. Uncle Zaba, is the information about that big red-nosed guy really safe? My men are keeping a close eye on him. Every message sent out has been filtered, and this person doesn't seem to have had any access to the design drawings, so it shouldn't be him. If it wasn't Hongbao, then who could it be? Suyinaru's gaze darkened. Go and call the big boss back. Zaba waved his hand, summoning a henchman and giving the order. By the way, don't let that Hongbao follow us. Yang Hong was both the designer and the head of the department, so this matter needed to be communicated to him. Thanks to Zaba's instructions, without Hongbao following him this time, Yang Hong walked briskly, much more relaxed. There was no other way. Being constantly monitored and followed was extremely frustrating, and finally getting a chance to be free was bound to make anyone feel elated. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.